Hello, friends. Welcome to the Sleep Aliens. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. You ever been someplace so quiet you can hear your own heartbeat? That's what the Nevada desert is like at 2 a.m. No birds, no crickets, just the wind and silence. Derek Martinez had been providing perimeter security for the contractor at Groom Lake for 3 years, and even now, he still wasn't adjusted to the conditions. His pickup truck inched along the unpaved road. There were no markings on the dirt road except in the beams of his headlights. The type of darkness that made a man wonder if he was even opening his eyes. There had been no radio talk for the past hour, but he hadn't expected anything different at the remote location. Down this far from the main base, a man merely had the sagebrush and what didn't happen at the AF. Derek checked his odometer. Another 2 miles to checkpoint 7, then he could turn around and head back. His shift ended at 6 and he was already fantasizing about the breakfast burrito waiting for him and Rachel. The little alien made them perfect, greasy, and enormous. That's when he saw it. At first, Derek thought it was a helicopter. A single white light maybe a mile out, hovering maybe 300 feet off the deck. But helicopters make noise. You can feel them in your chest before you even see them. This made no sound at all. He slowed the truck to a stop, killing his headlights. Old habit from his army days, don't advertise your position. The light remained stationary, a perfect pinpoint of white against the black sky. No navigation lights, no searchlight beam. Just one intense point of illumination that didn't flicker or move. Derek grabbed his radio. "Control, this is Perimeter 6. I've got an unknown aerial contact, South Sector, approximately 1 mile from my 20, requesting identification." Static. He tried again. "Control, do you copy? I have visual on an unidentified, nothing but white noise poured from the speaker." Derek's stomach tightened. The radio had worked fine 10 minutes ago. He reached for his cell phone. No signal. Out here that wasn't unusual, but the timing made his skin crawl. He looked back at the light. It hadn't moved, just hovering there, watching. Or was he watching it? Derek couldn't shake the feeling that something was studying him right back. The temperature inside the truck dropped. Not gradually, but all at once, like someone had opened a freezer door. Derek could see his breath now, little clouds forming in the air. His fingers were already going numb. "What the hell?" he muttered, cranking the heat to maximum. The vents blasted cold air. The engine was running fine, temperature gauge reading normal, but somehow the heater was blowing Arctic air into the cab. The light began to move, not drifting or floating, but accelerating instantly to the left, covering what must have been half a mile in less than a second. Then it stopped again, perfectly still. No deceleration, no momentum carrying it forward. It just stopped, like someone had hit pause on a video. Derek's mouth went dry. He'd seen drones before, plenty of them. He'd seen experimental aircraft, black helicopters, all the toys the Air Force kept in their sandbox. None of them moved like that. Physics didn't work like that. The light shot straight up, disappeared for a heartbeat, then reappeared directly above his truck. Derek didn't think. He threw the truck into drive and floored it. Gravel sprayed behind him as the tires fought for traction. His hands locked on the steering wheel, knuckles white. Don't look up, just drive. Get back to the main road where there are cameras and other people and things that make sense. The road ahead lit up like someone had turned on stadium lights. The brightness was so intense Derek had to squint, his eyes watering. Every shadow disappeared. The desert looked like noon in August, harsh and flat and unnatural. Then his truck died. Engine cut out. Headlights gone. Dashboard went dark. Even the digital clock stopped. Derek's momentum carried him another 50 feet before the truck rolled to a stop. He sat there in complete silence, bathed in that impossible white light from above, and felt more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. He tried the ignition, nothing, not even a click. The battery was completely dead, but that didn't explain why his watch had stopped too. Derek stared at it. The second hand frozen at 2:47 a.m. The temperature was still dropping. He could see frost forming on the inside of the windshield now, delicate patterns spreading like crystal spider webs. His breath came in ragged gasps, visible in the light from above. And then he heard it. Not a sound exactly, more like a pressure in his skull, a low thrumming that resonated in his bones, made his teeth ache, set his sinuses vibrating. It reminded him of standing too close to a subwoofer, but this came from everywhere at once, from the ground, from the air, from inside his own head. Derek tried the door handle. It wouldn't budge. He pulled harder, throwing his shoulder against it. The door was locked from the outside somehow. Or maybe it was just stuck. Or maybe physics had stopped making sense entirely. He didn't know anymore. The light began to descend. Slowly, this time. Deliberately. Like it wanted him to see it coming. Derek pressed himself back against the seat, heart hammering, watching that brilliant point grow larger as it approached. He couldn't look away, even as every instinct screamed at him to close his eyes, to hide, to do anything but stare. He couldn't stop watching. The light was maybe 100 feet above him now, close enough that Derek could see it wasn't coming from a single source. The brilliance was emanating from something behind it, illuminating the underside of a shape. A craft. Circular, or maybe hexagonal, it was hard to tell with the light so bright, but definitely solid. Definitely there. 50 feet. Derek could make out details now. The surface wasn't smooth. It had texture, like scales or panels or something organic. And there were no seams, no rivets, no welds, just a continuous surface that seemed to shift and flow even as he watched it. 25 feet. The thrumming in his skull intensified. Derek tasted copper in his mouth. His vision started to tunnel, darkness creeping in from the edges. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. His lungs wouldn't work. His chest felt like it was being compressed by an invisible weight. And then, everything stopped. The light vanished. The pressure released. The temperature suddenly returned to normal, so fast that condensation immediately fogged every window. Derek gasped, sucking in air, his heart trying to punch through his rib cage. His truck's engine roared to life. All the lights came back on. The radio burst into frantic chatter, multiple voices talking over each other. The dashboard clock blinked 5:23 a.m. Derek stared at it, not comprehending. That couldn't be right. It had been 2:47 just seconds ago. He looked at his watch. Also 5:23. He grabbed his phone, same time. Nearly 3 hours. Gone. Just erased from his memory like someone had taken scissors to a film reel and snipped out the middle. The radio continued its chaos. Derek picked it up with shaking hands. Perimeter 6. Respond immediately. Authorized search and rescue. Last known position. Control. Derek's voice came out as a croak. He cleared his throat and tried again. Control, this is Perimeter 6. I'm here. I'm okay. Silence. Then, Perimeter 6, confirm your position. We've had teams looking for you for 2 hours. Derek looked around. He wasn't where he'd stopped. The landscape looked different, unfamiliar. He checked his GPS unit. It showed he was 12 miles from where he'd been. 12 miles southeast, deep into the restricted zone where he definitely didn't have clearance to be. "I don't know," he said. "GPS shows sector Echo 7. Another pause. When the voice came back, it was different. Harder. "Perimeter 6, you are ordered to remain in your vehicle. A security team is en route to your location. Do not attempt to leave the area. Do you understand?" Yeah, I understand." "And Martinez?" "Yeah." "Don't talk to anyone about tonight. Not your buddy at the gate, not your roommate, nobody. You'll be debriefed when you get back. Clear?" Derek swallowed. Crystal clear. The radio clicked off. He sat there in his truck, engine idling, watching the sun start to paint the eastern horizon with purple and gold. His hands had finally stopped shaking. He couldn't remember anything after the light descended. Nothing. Just that blinding brilliance, the feeling of being compressed, and then waking up here 3 hours later and 12 miles from where he'd been. But he could feel something had changed. Not physically. He checked himself over and found no marks, no injuries, no signs of anything wrong. But something inside felt different. Like a door had been opened in his mind that he'd never known was there, and now he couldn't close it. In the distance he could see dust trails, multiple vehicles approaching fast. The debrief team. Derek wondered if they'd believe him. Then he wondered if they'd want him to believe himself. He looked at his phone one more time, checking for any sign of what had happened. The photo gallery was open. He didn't remember opening it. There was one new image. It was a picture of the night sky, stars crystal clear. But in the center of the frame was a perfectly circular absence of stars. Not black, not obscured, just missing, like someone had cut a hole in reality itself. Derek deleted the photo and put the phone away. The dust trails were getting closer. Lydia Reeves had worked signal intelligence for the contractor at Groom Lake for 7 years. She'd seen things on those screens that made her question reality, but she'd never seen nothing before. "Run it again," she told Jackson, her junior analyst. Jackson nodded, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. Rewinding to 0245 hours. The radar display reset, showing the southern perimeter in green phosphorescent glory. Dozens of tracking markers moved across the screen. Aircraft from Nellis. Commercial flights in holding patterns over Las Vegas. Even a few satellites if you knew where to look. But at 0247 hours, a blank space appeared. Not a radar shadow. Not a dead zone or interference pattern. Just a perfect circle of nothing, maybe a mile in diameter where the radar couldn't see. Like someone had taken an eraser to reality. "Equipment malfunction?" Lydia asked, though she already knew the answer. "Negative. Ran full diagnostics 3 times. Everything's operating normally. The radar's working fine. It's just not detecting anything in that space. But we have visual confirmation." Jackson pulled up the security feed from Camera 12, the southernmost unit in the network. The timestamp read 0247 hours. The infrared image showed the desert landscape in shades of gray. And there, clear as day, was Martinez's truck stopped in the middle of the road. Above it, a heat signature that didn't make sense. Too hot to be a helicopter. Too stable to be a flare. And shaped wrong. All smooth curves where there should be angles. How long did it last? Until 0523 hours. 2 hours and 36 minutes. Then the blank space just disappeared. Radar came back normal. No residual effects. No lingering interference. Lydia leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. This was above her pay grade. Way above. But she had to file a report, and that report would go to people who would ask uncomfortable questions. What about Martinez's radio? Dead air from 0246 to 0523. His transponder showed his truck moving during the blank period, but we couldn't raise him. GPS put him 12 miles southeast of his last confirmed position when contact was re-established. 12 miles in restricted airspace. Yes, ma'am. Lydia looked at the blank circle on the replay. Perfect. Too perfect. Nature didn't make circles that clean. Equipment failures didn't create geometric voids. Whatever had been out there, it didn't want to be seen by radar. And it had the technology to make that happen. Classify this as a Tier 3 anomaly, she said finally. Full document lock. Access restricted to S-level clearance and above. That's going to raise flags. That's the point. Let the flags get raised. Let someone else decide what this means. She pointed at the blank circle. Because I don't want my name anywhere near an explanation for that. Jackson saved the file and encrypted it. Within minutes, it would bounce through 3 secure servers before landing in an inbox at Langley. Or maybe the Pentagon. Or maybe somewhere that didn't officially exist. Lydia pulled up Martinez's personnel file. Clean record. 3 years on the job. Former Army, served in Afghanistan. No psych issues, no substance abuse, no disciplinary actions. By all accounts, a reliable guy doing a boring job in the middle of nowhere. She wondered if he'd stay reliable after tonight. The door to the operations center opened. Major Hendricks walked in, looking like he'd been awake for 3 days straight. Probably had been. Things had been active lately. More lights, more blank zones, more unexplained failures of equipment that never failed. "You're Reeves?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "I need everything you have on the incident this morning. Martinez, the radar gap, all of it. It's being classified as—" "I know what it's being classified as. I'm the one who authorized the classification." He held out a tablet. "Loaded here. Air-gapped device. No network connection." Lydia hesitated. Something in his eyes made her nervous. They looked haunted, like he'd seen too much and couldn't unsee it. "Sir, with respect, this needs to go through proper channels. This is proper channels. I'm the channel." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "How long have you worked here, Reeves?" 7 years. "Then you know the rules. You see something that doesn't make sense, you report it. You don't ask questions, you don't theorize. You certainly don't talk about it." He gestured at the blank circle frozen on her screen. "That's not the first one. It won't be the last. And the more you know about them, the worse you'll sleep at night. Trust me." Lydia transferred the files. The tablet beeped confirmation. Hendricks studied the data, scrolling through the images and timelines. His jaw tightened when he reached the thermal image of the heat signature above Martinez's truck. "Did he say what he saw?" "He hasn't been debriefed yet. Security team is still bringing him in. When he is, I want to be there, and I want you there too." "Me? Sir, you're the one who documented the radar gap. You saw how clean it was, how precise." He looked at her directly. "We need people who notice details, who ask the right questions and know when to stop asking. That's you." "What exactly am I looking for?" "Inconsistencies, memory gaps, changes in his story." Hendricks closed the tablet. "People who've had close encounters, real ones. They don't remember it the same way twice. The brain tries to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. It fills in gaps, creates narratives. We need to know what actually happened versus what he thinks happened. And if he doesn't remember, then we know it was closer than we'd like." Lydia felt a chill. "Sir, what exactly are we dealing with out there?" Hendricks stared at the blank circle on the screen for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's getting bolder. 10 years ago, these incidents happened maybe once a year. 5 years ago, once a month. Now? He gestured at the data. 3 times this week, and each time they get closer to the main facility, closer to places they definitely shouldn't be. What do they want? That's the question, isn't it? He moved toward the door, then paused. Martinez is a good man. Whatever happened to him out there, it wasn't his fault. Remember that during the debrief. He's going to need someone on his side. Then he was gone, leaving Lydia alone with her screens and her questions, and the perfect circular void where reality had stopped making sense. She pulled up the thermal image again. That heat signature. Too bright, too hot, too impossible. Her computer chimed. New email, classified header. She opened it. 3 words. Delete everything now. No signature, no sender address. Just those 3 words. Lydia looked at the blank circle on her screen, then at the thermal image, then at the timestamp showing Martinez's 3 missing hours. She thought about Hendrix's haunted eyes, about his warning, about how the incidents were accelerating. Her finger hovered over the delete key, but she didn't press it. Instead, she copied everything to a thumb drive, encrypted it with her personal key and slipped it into her pocket. Call it insurance. Call it documentation. Call it evidence that something was happening in the Nevada desert that the official record would never acknowledge. If they came for her, at least she'd know she'd kept the truth alive somewhere. The operations center's lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then steady. Lydia looked up at the ceiling, heart suddenly racing. The lights flickered again, and in the distance, barely audible over the hum of the equipment, she heard something that made her blood run cold. A low, thrumming sound, growing closer, like the purr of some massive engine that wasn't quite mechanical. She looked at her radar screen. Another blank circle was forming, right above the facility. Derek sat in the windowless interview room, staring at his reflection in the one-way mirror. He looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes. 3 days of stubble. Hair sticking up in weird directions. The fluorescent lights made his skin look gray and corpse-like. He'd been here for 6 hours. First came the medical exam. Blood draw, x-rays, full body scan. The doctor hadn't found anything wrong. No radiation exposure, no chemical contamination, no unexplained marks or injuries. Derek was, by all medical standards, perfectly healthy, except for the 3 hours he couldn't remember. The door opened. Major Hendrix entered, followed by a woman Derek didn't recognize. She was maybe 40, dark hair pulled back, dressed in civilian clothes but carrying herself with military precision. She held a tablet and didn't make eye contact. "Mr. Martinez," Hendrix said, sitting across from him. "This is Lydia Reeves. She's one of our signal analysts. She's going to be observing." "Observing what?" "Your debrief." Hendrix placed a digital recorder on the table. "I'm going to ask you some questions. I need you to answer them as completely and honestly as you can. Take your time. There's no rush." Derek nodded, his throat dry. They'd given him water earlier, but his mouth still felt like sandpaper. "Let's start with the basics. What time did you begin your patrol?" 2200 hours, 10 p.m. "And your route?" "Standard southern perimeter sweep. Checkpoints 1 through 9, then back to base. Did you notice anything unusual when you started?" Derek thought about it. Radio was quiet, but that's normal for that sector. "What about your vehicle? Any mechanical issues?" "No, everything was running fine." Hendrix made a note. "Take me through the evening, step by step." Derek closed his eyes, trying to remember. "I cleared checkpoints 1 through 6 without incident. That took me about 3 hours. I was heading toward checkpoint 7 when I saw the light. Describe it. White. Bright. Maybe a mile out, hovering a few hundred feet up. I thought it was a helicopter at first, but there was no sound. What did you do? Stopped my truck. Killed the lights. Called it in on the radio. And? Static. Just white noise. The radio had worked fine 10 minutes before, but now I couldn't raise anyone. Hendricks leaned forward slightly. What happened next? The light moved fast. Faster than anything I've ever seen. Covered maybe half a mile in less than a second, then stopped. No deceleration. Just stopped. How did that make you feel? Strange question. Derek frowned. Scared, confused. I've seen drones. I've seen experimental aircraft. Nothing moves like that. Did you try to leave? Yeah, I floored it. Headed back toward the main road. Derek's hands clenched on the table. Then the light appeared above me. Everything lit up. It was so bright I could barely see. And your truck? Died. Engine cut out. Lights went dark. Everything stopped. Even my watch stopped. Lydia spoke for the first time. The temperature. You said in your initial report that it got cold. Derek looked at her. Yeah, freezing. I could see my breath. Frost formed on the windshield. In August, in Nevada. I know how it sounds. I'm not questioning whether it happened, she said quietly. I'm trying to understand how it happened. Hendricks cut in. What's the last thing you remember clearly? Derek's jaw tightened. This was the part he didn't want to talk about. The part that made him feel crazy. The light descended, got close, maybe 20-25 feet above my truck, and I could see something. A shape behind the light, solid, real. He forced himself to meet Hendricks' eyes. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a helicopter. It was something else. Describe it. Circular. Or hexagonal. Hard to tell with the brightness. The surface looked textured, like scales or panels, but there were no seams, no rivets, just one continuous surface. What else? A sound. Not really a sound. More like pressure in my skull. A thrumming. Made my teeth ache. Derek's hands were shaking now. And then everything went dark. Next thing I remember, I'm sitting in my truck, sun coming up, and I'm 12 miles from where I stopped. 3 hours, Hendricks said. You lost 3 hours. I know. Do you remember anything from that time? Dreams? Sensations? Anything at all? Derek wanted to say no, wanted to leave it at that. But there was something. Fragments. Images that didn't quite connect. Flashes, he said slowly. Like photographs in my head. A bright room, clinical, everything white. And he stopped, not sure he could continue. And what? Figures. Tall and thin. I couldn't see their faces clearly. Everything was blurred, like looking through frosted glass. Derek's voice dropped. I think they were examining me. The room went quiet. Hendricks and Lydia exchanged a glance. These flashes, Lydia said carefully. Are they memories? Or could they be dreams your mind created to fill the gap? I don't know. That's the thing that scares me most. I don't know what's real anymore. Hendricks tapped the recorder. Mr. Martinez, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to think very carefully before answering. Have you told anyone else about this incident? No. You told me not to. Family? Friends? Anyone? No one? Good. Keep it that way. Hendricks stood. You're going to be placed on administrative leave for 2 weeks. Paid. We'll say it's routine, stress-related. Use the time to rest. Clear your head. What about my job? You'll have your job, assuming you want to come back. Derek looked at him sharply. Why wouldn't I? Because some people can't handle it, knowing that something's out there, something we don't understand and can't control. Hendricks headed for the door. Get some rest, Martinez. Try not to think about it too much. After he left, Lydia remained. She set her tablet on the table and pulled up an image. Derek recognized it immediately. His truck, viewed from above, thermal signature showing the interior heat, and above it that impossible brightness. This is what we saw in thermal imaging, she said. Your truck and the heat signature above it. Notice the temperature readings. Derek leaned closer. The numbers were wrong. Way wrong. That says 4,000 degrees. Surface temperature of the object, maybe. Or maybe our sensors can't accurately measure whatever we're looking at. She swiped to another image. This is the radar data from the same time. It showed nothing, just a blank circle where Derek's truck should have been. I don't understand. Neither do we. Whatever was above you, it completely blocked our radar, created a dead zone. But we could see it on visual and thermal, which means it was physically there, but somehow invisible to radar. That's not possible. I know. Lydia closed the tablet. Mr. Martinez, I've worked here for 7 years. I've seen a lot of things I can't explain, but this is different. The precision of it, the technology required to create that kind of radar shadow while maintaining a visual and thermal signature. We're decades away from having anything that could do that. What are you saying? I'm saying, whatever you saw out there, it wasn't ours, and it wasn't Chinese or Russian or any terrestrial technology I'm aware of. Derek felt that chill again. So what was it? That's the question no one wants to answer officially. She stood to leave. But off the record, I think you met something that's been visiting this place for a very long time. And I think whatever it did during those 3 hours, it left something behind. What do you mean? Your brain scans. The doctor probably didn't mention it, but there was an anomaly. Small, in your frontal lobe, like a tiny scar or maybe a marker of some kind. It wasn't there on your pre-employment medical scans 3 years ago. Derek's blood ran cold. What kind of marker? We don't know. It's not organic. It's not showing up as metal or silicon. It's just there, reflecting differently on the scan. She moved towards the door. They're calling it an imaging artifact, but I don't think it is. Are you saying they put something in my head? Lydia paused, her hand on the doorknob. I'm saying you should be careful, Mr. Martinez. Pay attention to changes in your sleep, in your thoughts, in your dreams. She met his eyes. And if you remember anything else about those 3 hours, anything at all, you might want to write it down. Keep your own record, because the official record is going to say this never happened. Then she was gone, and Derek was alone with his reflection in the mirror and the knowledge that something had been put inside his skull and he couldn't remember how it got there. He touched his forehead, feeling for something that wouldn't be detectable from outside. In the mirror, his reflection stared back, and for just a moment, Derek could have sworn his reflection was smiling while he wasn't. 3 weeks after the incident, Derek returned to work. They'd cleared him for duty after a psych evaluation that he'd barely passed. The therapist had asked him the same question 17 different ways. Do you believe you were abducted by aliens? Derek had learned to answer carefully. I don't know what happened that night. I just know something did happen. Technically true. Ambiguous enough to keep him employed. But things had changed. It started with the dreams. Every night, like clockwork, Derek would wake up at exactly 2:47 a.m. the same time his watch had stopped that night in the desert. He'd sit bolt upright, heart racing, covered in cold sweat, fragments of images fleeing from his memory like shadows at dawn. White rooms, clinical brightness, the sensation of being unable to move, and those tall, thin figures with faces he could never quite see. But the dreams weren't the worst part. The worst part was the feeling that he was being watched, not just sometimes, constantly, in his apartment, at work, even in the shower. Like unseen eyes tracked his every movement, recording, analyzing, waiting. He'd checked for cameras, found nothing, ran bug detectors through every room, clean, but the feeling persisted. And then there were the coincidences. Small things at first. He'd think about calling his sister and she'd call him 30 seconds later. He'd know which songs would play on the radio before they came on. He'd wake up knowing exactly what the weather would be, down to the minute when rain would start. It unnerved him, made him question whether the thing in his brain, that anomaly Lydia had mentioned, was doing something to him, changing him, making him into something different. On his first night back on patrol, Derek was assigned to the same route. Southern Perimeter, checkpoints 1 through 9. When he'd received the assignment, his supervisor had watched him carefully, looking for signs of panic or refusal. Derek had just nodded. No problem. But his hands had been shaking when he climbed into his truck. The night started normally. Radio chatter. Familiar roads, stars overhead. Derek kept his eyes on the road, avoiding looking at the sky for too long. Don't think about it. Don't remember. Just do the job. Checkpoint 3 clear, checkpoint 4 clear, checkpoint 5, his radio crackled, not with voices, with that sound. The thrumming he remembered from that night. Low and resonant and wrong. Derek grabbed the mic. Control, are you broadcasting some kind of test signal? Negative, Perimeter 6, we're reading you 5 by 5. What are you hearing? The sound grew louder. Derek could feel it in his bones now, that same vibration from before. His vision started to blur at the edges. Never mind, he said quickly. Must have been interference. But it wasn't interference. He looked at his watch, 2:47 a.m. Of course it was. The temperature in the truck plummeted. Derek could see his breath again. That same impossible cold despite the desert heat outside. And then, in his rearview mirror, he saw it. A light, white and brilliant, following him. Derek's foot pressed harder on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, gravel spraying. The light kept pace effortlessly, maintaining the same distance. Not catching up, not falling behind, just there, watching. His radio erupted with static. His dashboard lights flickered, and in his head, clear as day, he heard a voice. Not words, not exactly. More like concepts transmitted directly into his thoughts. Return, remember, understand. No, Derek said aloud. Leave me alone. You are marked, you are chosen, you will help. I don't want to help. Choice is irrelevant. You have been prepared. The light pulled alongside his truck now, matching his speed exactly. Derek couldn't help but look. Through the brilliant glare, he could make out that same shape, that same textured surface. And this time he could see more windows, or what might be windows. Dark ports in the hull where something might be looking out, watching him, studying him like a specimen under glass. Derek jerked the wheel, veering off the road and into the desert scrub. The truck bounced and rattled, shocks screaming. He didn't care. He had to get away from that thing. The light didn't follow. It stopped above the road, hovering there, pulsing gently. And in Derek's head, one final transmission. You will understand. Soon. Then it shot straight up and vanished, leaving only stars and darkness, and Derek sitting in his truck in the middle of nowhere hyperventilating. His radio crackled back to life. "Perimeter 6, your GPS shows you off route. Is everything okay?" Derek picked up the mic with a trembling hand. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thought I saw something. Checking it out." "Copy that. Let us know when you're back en route." "Will do." He sat there for a long time, engine idling, staring at the empty sky. His watch showed 3:15 a.m. He'd lost 28 minutes. Not 3 hours this time, but still gone, still erased from his memory. Derek climbed out of the truck on shaky legs. The desert air was cool, not freezing. Normal. He walked around to the back, needing to ground himself in something physical and real. That's when he saw them. Marks in the dust beside his truck. Not tire tracks. These were different, smooth and curved, like something had been set down there. 3 circular impressions, each about 2 feet across, arranged in a triangle. Landing gear. Derek knelt beside them, hand hovering over the nearest mark. The ground was compressed, fused almost, like intense heat had partially melted the sand and dirt. He pulled out his phone and took pictures. Lots of them, from different angles. Close-ups of the texture, wide shots showing the pattern. Evidence, proof, something that couldn't be explained away as equipment malfunction or stress-induced hallucination. His phone buzzed. New message. From an unknown number. Delete the photos. Derek's blood ran cold. He looked around, seeing nothing but darkness and desert. Another message. We're watching. Always delete them now. His finger hovered over the delete button. Then he thought about Lydia's thumb drive, about keeping his own record, about not letting the truth disappear into classified files and official denials. He uploaded the photos to a cloud server his employers didn't know about. Then he deleted them from his phone. A third message. Good choice. Derek got back in his truck and returned to his route. But he knew now, this wasn't over. Whatever had happened to him that first night, whatever they'd done during those missing hours, it had marked him, made him part of something bigger. And the scariest part? A small voice in the back of his mind, one that didn't quite sound like his own thoughts, told him that maybe being marked wasn't the worst thing that could happen. Maybe it was just the beginning. At the Groom Lake facility, Lydia Reeves stared at her screens in the darkened operations center. Another blank zone had appeared, this time lasting only 30 minutes. This time following Martinez's truck precisely. She pulled up his personnel file again. His psych eval had noted unusual responses to stress stimuli and possible dissociative episodes. The therapist had recommended continued monitoring but cleared him for duty. Lydia didn't trust that assessment. She opened her encrypted files, the ones on her personal thumb drive. Cross-referenced Martinez's incidents with other reports from the past decade. Found a pattern. 17 security personnel, 23 pilots, 41 researchers. All had encountered lights in the restricted zones. All had missing time. And all of them, when they'd been brain scanned, showed the same anomaly in their frontal lobes. The anomalies were getting larger with each incident. Growing. Spreading through the neural tissue like crystalline structures. What scared Lydia most was the follow-up notes. The people with the largest anomalies had started reporting precognitive episodes, telepathic experiences. One researcher claimed he could see through walls. Another said she could hear radio frequencies without equipment. They were being changed, altered, upgraded, or infected. Lydia's computer chimed, classified email. She opened it. Reeves, report to Special Projects Division tomorrow, 0900 hours. Bring all documentation regarding perimeter incidents. Hendricks. She sat back in her chair, mind racing. Special projects was where they sent the cases that didn't fit normal parameters, where the really weird stuff got hidden behind layers of compartmentalization and need-to-know restrictions. Going to special projects meant learning things you couldn't unlearn, seeing things you couldn't unsee. It also meant becoming part of the program, part of the cover-up, part of whatever was really happening in the Nevada desert. Lydia looked at her screens one more time. The blank zones were getting more frequent, more precise, more targeted. Whatever was out there, it had moved beyond random encounters. It was selecting specific people, marking them, changing them. For what purpose she didn't know, but she was about to find out. She ejected her thumb drive and slipped it into her pocket. Insurance evidence, a record that someone had noticed the pattern before the pattern consumed them all. The lights in the operations center flickered. Lydia looked up at the ceiling. The thrumming sound began. Quiet at first, then louder. She checked her radar. Another blank zone was forming, right above her. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hendricks. "Don't look outside. Don't try to leave. Just sit still and wait." Lydia's hands gripped the edge of her desk. The thrumming grew louder. The temperature dropped. Her breath came out in visible clouds. On her screen, she watched the blank zone expand, grow, cover the entire facility. And in that moment, Lydia understood. They weren't studying the facility. They were studying the people, the ones who'd noticed, the ones who'd documented, the ones who'd kept asking questions when they should have stopped. People like her. The ceiling lights went dark. Only the glow from her monitors remained, casting her face in sickly green light. Something was coming through the roof. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it, a presence, vast and ancient and utterly inhuman. Lydia closed her eyes. When she opened them again, it was morning. She was still in her chair. The screens showed normal operations. No blank zones, no anomalies. Her watch said 9:15 a.m. She'd lost 11 hours. Lydia stood on shaking legs and walked to the bathroom, splashed water on her face, looked at herself in the mirror. Everything seemed normal. No marks, no injuries. But when she looked closely at her eyes, she noticed something. A faint luminescence in her pupils. Just a flicker. Gone when she blinked. She touched her forehead. Felt nothing unusual, but she knew. She'd been marked now, too. And somewhere in the desert, Derek Martinez was waking up at 2:47 a.m. with the same knowledge, the same changes, the same certainty that nothing would ever be normal again. They were part of it now, part of the program, part of whatever the lights wanted from humanity. And the scariest part? A voice in her head, clear and cold and not her own, whispered, "Welcome." Owen Fisher had been watching security monitors for 6 years, and he'd learned one fundamental truth. Cameras don't lie. Equipment fails, power cuts out, hard drives corrupt. But when a camera is working properly, it records what happens. Every frame, every second, no exceptions. That's why the gap bothered him so much. It was 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in September when he first noticed it. A routine supply convoy had departed from the main facility at Groom Lake, heading south toward the auxiliary storage depot. 7 vehicles, 12 personnel, a standard monthly run. Nothing special. Owen was monitoring from the Security Operations Center, a bunker buried 40 feet underground and lined with enough electronics to make a Best Buy look like a garage sale. 16 high-definition monitors covered 3 walls, showing feeds from cameras positioned along every authorized route in the restricted zone. The convoy appeared on camera 19 at 3:41 a.m., right on schedule. 7 sets of headlights cutting through the darkness, maintaining proper spacing, speed steady at 45 miles per hour. Owen noted it in his log and turned his attention to other sectors. 4 minutes later, the convoy should have reached camera 22. Owen glanced at the monitor. Empty road. Just asphalt and painted lines glowing in infrared. He checked the timeline. The convoy should have passed 2 minutes ago. Owen pulled up the camera history and scrubbed backward through the footage. There, at 3:45:17, the first vehicle entered the frame. The timestamp ticked forward. The convoy rolled past, all 7 vehicles visible for a few seconds. Then nothing. Not static, not a black screen. The camera was still recording. The timestamp continued. But the convoy was gone. Vanished from the frame as if it had simply ceased to exist. Owen's stomach tightened. He checked camera 23 further down the road. At 3:45:38, the convoy reappeared. All 7 vehicles still in formation, still traveling at 45 miles per hour. 21 seconds. The convoy had disappeared for 21 seconds. Owen rewound the footage from camera 22 again, watched it frame by frame. At 3:45:17:04, the lead vehicle's front bumper was visible at the edge of the frame. At 3:45:17:05, the vehicle was gone. Just empty road. He checked all 3 cameras. 19, 22, 23. The timestamps were synchronized. The frame rates matched. Everything was functioning normally, except for the fact that 7 military vehicles and 12 people had vanished from camera coverage for 21 seconds, and Owen couldn't see where they'd gone. He reached for the radio. "Control, this is Monitor Station 4. I need supervisor authorization for a technical review." Static crackled. Then, "Station 4, this is Control. What's the nature of the issue?" "Camera anomaly on the southern route. Supply convoy shows a gap in coverage." Pause. Define gap. 21 seconds of missing footage on camera 22. Convoy disappears from frame, reappears downstream on camera 23. Another pause, longer this time. "Station 4, maintain position. Supervisor en route." Owen sat back, staring at the monitors. The convoy had reached the storage depot now. Vehicles parked in neat rows. Personnel unloading cargo. Everything normal. Everything routine. Except for those 21 seconds that didn't exist. The door to the monitoring station opened. Captain Sarah Vance entered, her uniform crisp despite the early hour. She'd been supervisor of security operations for 2 years, and Owen had never seen her rattled. She always had an explanation, always had a solution until now. "Show me," she said. Owen brought up the footage. Vance watched in silence as the convoy disappeared and reappeared. He showed her the timestamps, the frame analysis, the synchronized camera system that proved all equipment was functioning correctly. "Run diagnostics on camera 22, she said finally. Owen's fingers moved across the keyboard. "Already did. Passed all tests. Camera's fine." "Power disruption?" "Negative. Continuous power supply confirmed. Battery backup shows no gaps." Vance leaned closer to the screen. "Play it again. Slower." Owen obliged. Frame by frame, the lead vehicle entered camera 22's view, then vanished. Not fading. Not driving out of frame. Just there one moment, gone the next. "What about the road?" Vance asked. "Any changes? Debris? Obstacles?" "Nothing. I've checked every frame. The road is clear throughout." Vance straightened. "I need you to pull the radio logs from that convoy. Every transmission. Time-stamped." Owen accessed the communications archive. The convoy had maintained radio silence for most of the journey, standard procedure for routine runs. but there should have been automatic transponder pings every 60 seconds. He pulled up the data. At 3:45:17, the lead vehicle sent its automated ping. Signal strong. Position confirmed. The next ping should have come at 3:46:17. It came at 3:45:38. 21 seconds early. That's impossible, Owen said. The transponders are hardwired. They can't send early. Unless they never stopped sending, Vance said quietly. What if the convoy didn't disappear? What if the cameras just couldn't see them? Owen looked at her. That doesn't make sense. The cameras record everything in their field of view. There's no technology that can make something invisible to cameras but still physically present. None that we know about. The words hung in the air between them. Vance pulled out her phone. I'm calling this in. Keep monitoring the feeds. If any other anomalies appear, I want to know immediately. What should I log this as? She paused at the door. Equipment malfunction. Pending technical review. But the equipment's not malfunctioning. I know. Vance met his eyes. But that's what the log says anyway. After she left, Owen sat alone with his monitors and the footage that made no sense. He replayed it again and again, looking for something he'd missed, some explanation that would make the impossible possible. The convoy had been on a straight road. No turns, no intersections, no buildings or terrain features that could have obscured the view, just flat desert and asphalt stretching for miles. And for 21 seconds, 7 vehicles had ceased to exist on camera. Owen pulled up the satellite imaging for the area. The military maintained real-time surveillance of the entire restricted zone. If the convoy had been there, the satellite would have seen it. He accessed the satellite archive for 3:45:17. The image showed the road, empty, no vehicles visible. He jumped to 3:45:38. The convoy reappeared, all 7 vehicles, right where they should have been. Owen's hands were shaking now. This wasn't a camera malfunction, this wasn't equipment failure. This was something else. Something that had made 7 vehicles invisible to both ground cameras and satellite surveillance. He checked the environmental sensors, air temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure, all readings normal, no anomalies, no storms, no unusual electromagnetic activity. Except, Owen noticed something in the data. At exactly 3:45:17, there was a spike in background radiation. Small, barely noticeable, but there. And at 3:45:38, the radiation level dropped back to normal, 21 seconds. Owen opened a new search window and started digging through historical data, looking for similar patterns, similar gaps. He had authorization to access 6 months of archived footage. He found 3 more incidents. July 15th. A patrol vehicle, 12-second gap. August 3rd, a cargo truck, 18 seconds. August 29th, a maintenance crew van, 9 seconds. All on the same stretch of road, all during early morning hours, all showing the same pattern. Vehicles disappearing from camera and satellite coverage, then reappearing further down the road with no memory of the gap. Owen's heart was pounding now. He pulled up the radiation data for each incident. Spikes every single time, small increases in background radiation coinciding exactly with the disappearances. He was looking at a pattern, a repeating phenomenon that had been happening for months, and nobody had noticed because the gaps were short. Seconds, easy to dismiss as technical glitches or timing errors. But they weren't glitches. Owen checked the duty rosters for the previous incidents. Different drivers, different personnel. But all of them had filed reports noting brief periods of disorientation or confusion during their routes. One driver mentioned feeling foggy for a few minutes. Another reported a momentary loss of radio contact. The reports had been filed, noted, then forgotten. Attributed to fatigue or stress, but they weren't fatigue. Owen pulled out his phone and dialed Vance's number. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. A message appeared on his computer screen. Do not discuss these findings with anyone. Report to Special Projects Division at 800 hours. Delete all analysis files. Hendricks. Owen stared at the message. He hadn't sent his findings to anyone. Hadn't filed a report. Hadn't even finished his analysis. But somehow they already knew. He glanced at the camera in the corner of the monitoring station. The little red light was on. Recording. Always recording. Of course, they knew. Owen deleted his analysis files as instructed, but he'd learned something from watching 6 years of security footage. You always keep a backup. He copied everything to a thumb drive and slipped it into his sock. The convoy personnel were being debriefed somewhere in the facility. 12 people who'd lost 21 seconds and didn't even know it. Owen wondered what they'd been told. Probably nothing. Probably just asked if they'd noticed anything unusual, if anyone had felt sick or disoriented. They'd say no, because from their perspective, nothing had happened. They'd driven from point A to point B with no interruptions, no gaps, no missing time, but the cameras knew better. Owen checked the current feeds. Everything normal. Quiet night in the restricted zone. Just another shift in the Nevada desert where impossible things happened and everyone pretended they didn't. He looked at the timestamp on his monitor, 4:23 a.m. In less than 4 hours, he'd report to Special Projects Division. They'd ask him what he saw, what he concluded, whether he'd told anyone. He'd tell them the truth. Mostly. He'd seen an equipment anomaly. He'd concluded there was a technical issue requiring further investigation. He hadn't told anyone. All true, technically. What he wouldn't tell them was that he'd figured out the pattern. He'd found the previous incidents. He'd connected the radiation spikes, and he knew now that whatever was happening on that stretch of road, it had been happening for months, maybe years. Something was out there. Something that could make vehicles disappear from every surveillance system the military possessed. Something that could steal 21 seconds from 12 people's lives and leave no memory behind. Owen glanced at the monitors one more time. Camera 22 showed an empty road. Just asphalt and painted lines. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the camera's view, something was waiting for the next convoy to pass through. Lieutenant Marcus Cole had driven the southern route 47 times in the past year. He knew every curve, every marker, every pothole. The road was as familiar to him as his own driveway. So when he woke up in the parking area at the storage depot with no memory of the last 5 minutes of the drive, it bothered him. "You all right, sir?" Sergeant Ramirez asked from the passenger seat. Marcus blinked, gripping the steering wheel. Yeah, I'm fine. Just zoned out for a second." But it hadn't been a second. The dashboard clock showed 3:48 a.m. His last clear memory was checking his watch at 3:43 a.m., noting they were making good time. 5 minutes. Gone. Marcus climbed out of the lead vehicle, his legs feeling strange. Not weak exactly. Just disconnected. Like he'd been sitting for hours instead of driving for 20 minutes. The rest of the convoy personnel were dismounting their vehicles. Everyone moving normally. Nobody seemed concerned or confused. "Hey," Marcus called to the driver of Vehicle 3. "Collins, you notice anything weird on the drive?" Corporal Collins shook his head. "Negative, sir. Smooth run. Why?" "Just checking." Marcus walked the length of the convoy, inspecting each vehicle. All in good condition. No damage. No signs of anything unusual. He checked his own vehicle's dashcam footage. The screen showed the road, the convoy moving, everything normal. Except when he scrubbed through the timeline, he found it. A gap. The footage jumped from 3:45:16 to 3:45:37. 21 seconds of missing data. Marcus's hands went cold. He checked the other vehicles, all equipped with dash cams, all showing the same thing. Perfect footage before and after, but in the middle, a gap. Exactly 21 seconds. "Sergeant," Marcus said quietly, "get everyone to the briefing room, now." Ramirez frowned. "Sir? Now, Sergeant?" 10 minutes later, 12 people sat around a folding table in the depot's small office. Marcus stood at the head, his tablet showing the dashcam footage. "I'm going to ask each of you a question, and I need honest answers. No bullshit, no trying to look tough." He met each person's eyes. "Does anyone remember anything unusual about the drive? Any gaps in your awareness? Any moments where you felt disoriented or lost track of time?" Silence. Then Private Morrison raised her hand. Maybe. I thought I dozed off for a second, but I was in the back of Vehicle 4. I figured I just blinked." "When?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe 10 minutes ago?" Marcus pulled up Vehicle 4's dash cam. "Was it here?" He showed her the footage gap. Morrison leaned closer. "What am I looking at?" 21 seconds of missing footage. The camera stopped recording, then started again. "All the cameras?" Collins asked. "All of them." The room went quiet. "That's not possible," Ramirez said. "These systems are independent, different manufacturers, different power supplies. They can't all fail at the same time." "I know," Marcus said. "But they did." He pulled up his own memory of the drive. Clear until 3:43 a.m., then nothing. Then suddenly arriving at the depot. No recollection of the road between. No memory of making decisions or responding to conditions. Just blank space where 5 minutes should have been. "I think something happened to us out there," Marcus said carefully. "I think we lost time, all of us, together." "Like what?" Morrison asked. "An electrical pulse? Solar flare? I don't know, but I'm filing a report. Everyone needs to write down everything they remember about the drive. Times, landmarks, radio traffic, everything. We'll piece together what we can." The door opened. Captain Vance entered, followed by 2 military police officers Marcus didn't recognize. "Lieutenant Cole," Vance said, "I need you and your personnel to come with us. You're being transferred to the main facility for debriefing." "What kind of debriefing?" "Routine. We're just following protocol for equipment malfunctions." This wasn't an equipment malfunction. Vance's expression didn't change. "Nevertheless, transport is waiting." Marcus looked at his team. 12 faces showing various degrees of confusion and concern. They knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what. "All right," Marcus said. "We'll cooperate. But I want it on record that I'm filing a formal incident report. Multiple equipment failures, potential safety hazard." "Noted," Vance said. "Now please come with us." They were loaded into 2 vans, separated by vehicle assignments. Marcus found himself alone with the drivers from vehicles 1 through 4. Nobody spoke during the 20-minute drive back to the main facility. The vans didn't take them to the regular security office. Instead, they pulled up to a nondescript building on the facility's east side. No signs, no windows, just a steel door with a card reader. Inside, the building was divided into individual interview rooms. Marcus was escorted to room 3, a windowless space containing only a table, 2 chairs, and a camera mounted in the corner. A man in civilian clothes entered, 50s, graying hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. "Lieutenant Cole, I'm Dr. Patterson. I'm here to ask you some questions about your convoy run this morning." "Are you with medical?" Something like that. Patterson sat across from Marcus and opened a tablet. "Let's start with the basics. How are you feeling right now?" "Confused, concerned. I want to know what happened to my team. They're fine." "Everyone's being interviewed separately, standard procedure." Patterson tapped the tablet. "Tell me about the drive. Start from when you left the main facility." Marcus went through it. The departure, the route, the familiar landmarks, then the gap, the blank space where memory should have been. Patterson listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, he asked, "Have you experienced anything like this before?" "Brief periods of disorientation or memory loss? No, never." "Any headaches, nausea, visual disturbances?" "No." "What about dreams? Have you had any unusual dreams lately?" Strange question. Marcus frowned. "Dreams? Nightmares, recurring images, anything that stands out?" Marcus thought about it. He had been having a dream, same one for the past week, standing in a white room, bright, clinical, unable to move. But that was just stress. Everyone at the facility had weird dreams, part of working in a place where the government kept its secrets. Nothing specific, Marcus lied. Patterson's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew. Somehow, he knew Marcus wasn't being completely honest. "Lieutenant, what I'm about to tell you is classified. You cannot discuss it with your team. You cannot discuss it with your family. You cannot even write about it in a personal journal." Patterson leaned forward. "Do you understand?" "Yes." "You and your convoy experienced what we call a temporal displacement event. For 21 seconds, you were not where you thought you were. Your consciousness was elsewhere. When you returned, your brain filled in the gap, made the timeline seem continuous." Marcus felt his skin go cold. "What do you mean, elsewhere?" "We don't fully understand it. We know it happens. We know it's localized to certain areas of the restricted zone, and we know it's becoming more frequent. What causes it? That's classified above your pay grade. Is it dangerous?" Patterson hesitated. "We don't think so. Everyone who's experienced these events has come back unchanged. No physical effects, no lasting psychological damage. But you're monitoring us anyway. Precaution. We take these incidents seriously." Patterson stood. "You'll be placed on medical leave for 72 hours. Use the time to rest. If you experience any unusual symptoms, headaches, disorientation, visual problems, report to medical immediately. And after 72 hours, you return to duty. Resume normal operations. The incident will be noted in your file but won't affect your career." "What about my team?" "Same protocol. Everyone gets 72 hours. Patterson moved to the door. "One more thing, the dashcam footage. It's been classified. You won't have access to it, and you won't discuss it with anyone. Clear?" "Clear." After Patterson left, Marcus sat alone in the room for 10 minutes before an MP arrived to escort him out. He was given a room in the temporary quarters building and told to stay there until dismissed. He lay on the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember those missing 5 minutes, trying to recall something, anything, from that blank space. Nothing came. Just white room, bright lights, unable to move. That was the dream. But maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was a memory. A memory his brain had dressed up as a dream to make it acceptable. Marcus closed his eyes and saw the white room. Walls without seams, ceiling without edges, floor that seemed to glow from within, and shapes, tall and thin and wrong, moving around him, examining him. He jerked awake, heart pounding. The clock showed 2:47 p.m. He'd been asleep for hours, but it felt like seconds. His phone buzzed. Text from Ramirez. "Everyone okay? Just tired. You?" Marcus typed back, "Same. See you in 72. But he wasn't the same. Something had changed. He could feel it. A presence in the back of his mind that hadn't been there before. Watching, waiting. He went to the small bathroom and splashed water on his face. Looked at himself in the mirror. His eyes looked normal, brown, clear, but for just a moment he could have sworn they reflected light differently. Like there was something behind them, something that didn't belong. Marcus blinked. Normal again. He told himself it was stress, lack of sleep, psychological reaction to a traumatic event. But he didn't believe it. Something had happened during those 21 seconds. Something that had nothing to do with equipment malfunctions or temporal displacements or any other official explanation. They'd been taken somewhere, studied, changed, and then returned with their memories erased. Marcus thought about the pattern Owen had discovered. Multiple incidents, increasing frequency, all on the same stretch of road. Whatever was out there, it wasn't done with them. It was just getting started. Owen Fisher reported to Special Projects Division at exactly 0800 hours. The building was underground, accessible only through a service elevator that required 3 separate security clearances. He'd never been there before. Most people at the facility hadn't. Special Projects was where the weird stuff went to die, or to be studied. Owen wasn't sure which. Major Hendricks met him in the lobby. "Fisher, good, come with me." They walked through corridors lined with offices that had no nameplates. No signs indicating who worked there or what they did. Just numbers on doors and the hum of air conditioning. Hendricks led Owen to a conference room containing 6 people Owen didn't recognize. All civilian clothes, all watching him with expressions that suggested they knew things he didn't. "Everyone, this is Owen Fisher. He's the analyst who discovered the pattern." Hendricks gestured to an empty chair. "Sit." Owen sat, a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, slid a tablet across the table. "We've reviewed your findings, the convoy incident, the historical data, your conclusions about the radiation spikes. I only concluded there was a correlation. You didn't conclude anything," she interrupted. "That's the official position. You noticed an equipment anomaly, nothing more. But the cameras malfunctioned, simultaneously, due to a software glitch we're currently investigating." She folded her hands. "That's what happened. That's what you'll say if anyone asks." Owen looked around the table. 6 faces, all serious, all waiting for him to agree. "And if I don't agree, then you'll be reassigned, somewhere far from here, somewhere quiet, somewhere you can't cause problems." The woman leaned forward. "Or you can stay, help us figure out what's really happening, but only if you can follow orders, only if you can keep your mouth shut." Owen swallowed. What is really happening? Hendricks pulled up a presentation on the wall screen. Satellite images, camera footage, radiation data, everything Owen had found, plus more, much more. "We've been tracking these incidents for 3 years, Hendricks said. They started small, a few seconds here and there, easy to dismiss, but they're increasing, in frequency and duration. The convoy's 21 seconds is the longest gap we've recorded." "Why that road?" Owen asked. "We don't know. There's nothing special about that location. No underground facilities, no experimental equipment. Just desert and asphalt. But something uses that stretch of road. Something that can disable our surveillance systems and make vehicles disappear. For what purpose? Nobody answered. The woman spoke again. We believe the personnel are being studied, examined, then returned with no memory of the encounter. But we're seeing changes. Small ones. Brain scans show anomalies in subjects who've experienced multiple incidents. Cognitive tests reveal enhanced pattern recognition. Improved reaction times. They're being altered, Owen said. Possibly, or activated, or prepared for something. She brought up brain scan images. These are from Lieutenant Cole and his team. Fresh scans from this morning. Notice the frontal lobe activity. Owen studied the images. Areas that should have been normal showed increased density. Small structures that didn't match typical neural patterns. What are those? We don't know. They don't show up as organic tissue. They're not metallic. They're not technology we recognize. They're just there, present, growing. Owen felt sick. You're saying something put those in their brains. We're saying something changed their brains during those 21 seconds. Whether that change is beneficial or harmful, we don't know yet. Hendricks closed the presentation. This is why we need you. You're good at finding patterns, connections. We need someone who can analyze the data without preconceptions, without assuming we know what we're looking at. And if I find something you don't want to hear, then we deal with it. But we need the truth first, even if the truth is uncomfortable. Owen thought about the thumb drive in his sock, the backup files that could get him fired. Or worse. I want full access, he said. All historical data, all personnel files, everything related to these incidents. Done. And I want immunity, written, signed. If I find something that contradicts the official story, I won't be punished for reporting it. The woman exchanged glances with the others around the table. Agreed, but everything you discover stays in this room. You don't discuss it with anyone outside this division. Not friends, not family, not your priest. I don't have a priest. Then you're ahead of the game. She stood. Welcome to Special Projects, Mr. Fisher. Try not to lose your mind. Owen was given an office. Small, windowless, containing a computer terminal with access to databases he'd never known existed. Years of incident reports. Thousands of hours of surveillance footage, medical records, psychological evaluations, and patterns. So many patterns. Owen started with the basics, mapped every incident on a timeline, 62 events over 3 years, all within a 5-mile radius, all during early morning hours, all involving military vehicles. But civilian traffic used those roads too. Contractors, maintenance crews, scientists commuting to research stations. Owen pulled up civilian incident reports, found 17 additional cases, lost time, brief confusion, gaps in dashcam footage. None of them had been officially connected to the military incidents. They'd been filed separately, dismissed as unrelated, but they followed the same pattern. Owen created a map, overlaid all 79 incidents. They formed a rough circle, centered on a point in the desert about 30 miles south of the main facility. He pulled up geological surveys of that location. Nothing special, just flat desert. No caves, no underground structures, no significant mineral deposits. But something was there, something that had chosen that spot for a reason. Owen accessed the satellite surveillance of the area. Real-time feed. Just empty desert under the morning sun. He scrubbed backward through the archive. Days, weeks, months. At 3:45 a.m. on 17 different dates, the satellite footage showed the same thing. A blank spot, like a photograph with a piece cut out. Circular, precise, lasting anywhere from 9 to 21 seconds. Something was appearing there, something the satellite couldn't see, and it was taking people. Owen pulled up the personnel files of everyone who'd experienced multiple incidents. 12 people, all military. All had served multiple tours overseas. All had high security clearances. They were being selected, chosen based on criteria Owen couldn't determine. He cross-referenced their medical histories, looking for commonalities, rare blood types, genetic markers, anything that would explain why these specific individuals, nothing obvious. But when Owen looked at their psychological profiles, he found something interesting. All 12 scored high on a specific personality trait: curiosity. They asked questions, challenged assumptions, looked for patterns. Just like Owen. His hands went cold. He pulled up his own personnel file, checked his psych evaluation from 6 years ago. Same markers: high curiosity, pattern recognition, tendency to question authority. The kind of person who'd notice a 21-second gap in surveillance footage. The kind of person who'd dig deeper instead of accepting the official explanation. Owen looked at the map on his screen. All those incident sites, all those people who'd been taken and returned. And now he was part of it, part of the pattern. Selected because he'd discovered what they didn't want discovered. His computer chimed. New email from an address he didn't recognize. Stop looking, you're not ready yet. Owen stared at the message. Nobody should have access to his terminal. It was air-gapped, isolated from the network. Another email. 3 more weeks, then you'll understand. Understand what? Owen typed back. The response came immediately. Why we chose you. Owen's office door was locked. He was alone. But someone was watching. Monitoring his terminal, reading his thoughts. Or maybe reading something else. Something in his brain that had been put there without his knowledge. Owen pulled up his own medical records. Found his most recent annual physical, standard brain scan. He opened the imaging file. There, in his frontal lobe. The same anomaly he'd seen in Cole and the others. A small structure that shouldn't exist. But when had it been put there? Owen hadn't experienced any missing time. Hadn't driven the southern route. Hadn't been involved in any incidents. Or had he? Owen scrubbed through his own timeline, looking for gaps, moments where his memory seemed fuzzy or incomplete. He found them. Small ones, a few minutes here and there. Times when he'd sat down to review footage and suddenly realized hours had passed. He'd attributed it to focus, getting lost in the data, but maybe it had been something else. Owen checked the monitor logs, times when he'd been alone in the security station, cross-referenced them with the radiation data. Spikes, every time. Small increases in background radiation coinciding with his memory gaps. They'd been taking him too, right from his workstation, right from the facility, and he'd never noticed. Owen stood up, legs shaking. He had to tell someone. Hendricks, the woman with the gray hair, someone who could make sense of this, but his office door wouldn't open. The card reader showed green, unlocked, but the door didn't budge. Owen pulled harder, nothing. His computer screen flickered. New message. Sit down, Owen, we need to talk. Who are you? Owen asked aloud. You know who we are. You've been studying us for 3 years, watching our patterns, learning our methods. Where are you? Closer than you think. Owen looked at the ceiling, at the walls, searching for cameras, sensors, some explanation for how they were communicating. You won't find us by looking, the message continued. We're not outside, we're inside, in the part of your brain we modified. We can see what you see, know what you know. Why? Because you asked the right questions. because you noticed what others missed. Because you're exactly what we need. For what? Understanding. Communication. Bridge building between your species and ours. Owen sank into his chair. This couldn't be real. This was psychosis. Stress-induced hallucination. He was losing his mind. You're not losing your mind, the message read. You're expanding it. In 3 weeks, the process will complete. Then you'll see everything clearly. Then you'll understand your purpose. And if I don't want this purpose? Too late. You were selected. The changes have begun. Fighting will only make it more difficult. Owen's hands clenched. Let me out of this room. Soon. First, you need to see something. The wall screen activated. Surveillance footage. Not from the facility. From somewhere else. A white room. Seamless. Bright. And in the center, a table. On the table lay Lieutenant Marcus Cole. Eyes open. Unable to move. Tall figures stood around him. Thin and elongated. Examining him with instruments Owen couldn't identify. The timestamp showed 3:45:18. During the convoy's missing 21 seconds. This is where they go, the message explained. This is what happens. We take them, study them, return them. Most never remember, but some do, the ones we need to remember. Why show me this? Because in 3 weeks, you'll be helping us. You'll understand both perspectives, human and ours. You'll translate, mediate, help your species accept what's coming. What's coming? First contact, official, open. No more secrets, no more hiding. Humanity needs to know we're here. And we need people like you to help them understand we're not enemies. Owen stared at the screen. At Marcus lying on that table. At the figures surrounding him. You're lying, Owen said. If you wanted peace, you wouldn't be taking people against their will. You wouldn't be changing their brains without permission. Permission requires understanding. Understanding requires communication. Communication requires preparation. We're preparing you. By force. By necessity. The screen went dark. The door clicked. Unlocked. Think about what you've seen, Owen. In 3 weeks, you'll have all the answers. Until then, continue your research. Find the patterns. Understand the method. It will make the transition easier. The messages stopped. Owen's terminal returned to normal. Just data and maps and his own terrified reflection in the monitor. He grabbed his coat and ran. Lieutenant Marcus Cole was discharged after 72 hours. Clean bill of health, no lingering effects, no psychological trauma. He was cleared to return to duty. But he didn't trust it. The white room kept appearing in his dreams, every night. Sometimes multiple times. He'd wake up at 3:45 a.m., drenched in sweat, unable to shake the feeling of being examined. His team experienced the same thing. They didn't talk about it officially, but in quiet moments they'd share glances. Silent acknowledgement that something had happened. Something they couldn't discuss. Ramirez pulled Marcus aside one morning. "Sir, I need to ask you something, off the record." "Go ahead." "Do you feel different since the convoy?" Marcus considered lying, then decided against it. "Yeah, I do. How? I don't know. Like I'm seeing things clearer, noticing details I used to miss. But also like I'm being watched, constantly." Ramirez nodded slowly. "Me too, and Morrison, and Collins, all of us." "Have you reported it to medical?" "No, I don't trust them. Whatever's happening, I don't think they want to fix it. I think they're documenting it." Marcus looked around the empty hallway. What do you think happened to us? I think we were taken. I think something took us out of our vehicles for 21 seconds and did something to us. Changed us. Ramirez met his eyes. And I think it's going to happen again. Why? Because I keep getting this feeling, like something's calling me, pulling me toward the southern route. I applied for a transfer yesterday, requested assignment anywhere else, away from here. Did they approve it? Denied. They said I'm essential personnel, can't be spared. Marcus felt that same pull, that same compulsion to drive the southern route again, to return to the spot where they'd disappeared. What if we refuse? Marcus asked. What if we all request transfers? Then they'll make us drive that road anyway, under orders. We can't say no to orders. Marcus knew he was right. They were trapped, selected for something they didn't understand, changed into something they weren't before. We need to find out what they want from us, Marcus said. Why us specifically? How? There's an analyst, Fisher. He discovered the camera gap. He might know more. They'll have him locked down. Special projects, probably. Then we find someone else. Someone outside the system who can help us. Ramirez looked doubtful. Like who? Marcus thought about it. Vance, Captain Vance. She showed up at the depot. She knew something was wrong before we even reported it. She might have answers. Or she might be part of it. Maybe, but we need to try. Marcus found Vance in her office that evening. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, papers scattered across her desk. "Lieutenant," she said, "what can I do for you? I need to know what happened to my team. The truth." Vance studied him for a long moment. Then she stood and closed the office door, drew the blinds, sat back down. "The truth is complicated. Try me. The truth is you were taken. All of you. For exactly 21 seconds. And during that time, something was done to you. We don't know what, we don't know why. But we know it's happened to 79 people over the past 3 years. Where were we taken? Somewhere close. Maybe just a few hundred feet away. Maybe in a different dimension or phase of reality. Our instruments can't detect it. We just see the gaps." Marcus felt his stomach turn. "What did they do to us?" "Placed something in your brains. Small structures in the frontal lobe. They show up on advanced scans, but we can't determine what they are or what they do. Can you remove them?" "We tried, once. With a volunteer who'd experienced 3 incidents. The surgery failed. He died on the table." Vance's voice was flat. "We don't try anymore. So, we're stuck with these things in our heads. Yes. For what purpose? We think they're monitoring devices, or communication arrays, something that lets them observe you, track you, maybe influence you." Marcus thought about the pull he'd been feeling, the compulsion to return to the southern route. "They want us to go back." Vance nodded. "We've noticed that pattern. People who've experienced one incident often experience more, like they've been marked, selected for ongoing study. Can we refuse? You can try. But the compulsion gets stronger. Most people eventually give in, drive the route, experience another gap." She leaned forward. "The question is, what happens after multiple exposures? What are they preparing you for? Do you have theories?" "Several. None good." Vance pulled up files on her computer. Some researchers think they're selecting candidates for hybrid experiments, blending human and alien genetics. Others think they're mapping human consciousness, learning how we think, how we respond, preparing for invasion. What do you think? I think they're recruiting, finding people with specific qualities. intelligence, adaptability, curiosity, and changing those people into something that can serve as intermediaries between their species and ours. Why would they need intermediaries? Because they're planning to reveal themselves soon, and they need humans who can help other humans accept their presence. People who've been altered enough to understand both perspectives. Marcus felt cold. How soon? We don't know, but the incidents are accelerating, getting longer, more people affected. Whatever timeline they're following, we're approaching the end of it. Is there any way to stop it? Vance met his eyes. No. The best we can do is document it, learn from it, try to maintain some semblance of control when everything changes. That's it? Just accept it? What else can we do? We can't see them, can't fight them, can't communicate with them. They have all the power. All we have is observation. Marcus stood. There has to be something, some way to resist. There might be, but it won't come from inside the facility. Vance handed him a slip of paper with an address. There's a woman, former intelligence analyst. She left the program 5 years ago. Might have information we don't. If you want answers, start there. Why would you help me? Because I'm tired of watching people get taken and being told to pretend it's not happening. Because maybe if enough of you resist, they'll have to change their approach. She stood. Be careful, Lieutenant. They're watching. Always. Marcus left with the address burning in his pocket. He knew going to see this woman would mean crossing lines, violating security protocols, possibly ending his career. But his career didn't matter anymore. Not when something had invaded his mind. Not when he was being changed into something he never agreed to become. He drove off base that night. The address led him to a small house in Rachel, the tiny town that existed solely because of its proximity to the restricted zone. A woman answered the door. 60s, gray, streaked hair, sharp eyes that assessed him immediately. Let me guess, she said. You've been taken, changed, and now you want answers. Yes. Come in. But understand, once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. Your life will never be normal again. It's already not normal. She smiled grimly. Fair enough. Inside, the house was filled with filing cabinets, computers, whiteboards covered in diagrams and timelines. It looked like a command center. I'm Dersera Winters, she said. I spent 15 years studying these incidents from inside special projects. Then I realized they didn't want solutions. They wanted documentation, so I left. What did you find? Everything. She pulled up a massive database on her computer. 517 incidents over 20 years. Patterns, progressions, changes in affected individuals. What are they doing to us? Evolving you. The structures they place in your brain, they grow, spread, connect to existing neural pathways. Eventually they integrate completely, become part of you. And then what? Then you can hear them, communicate with them, see what they want you to see. Winters pulled up brain scans. These are from people who've had 5 or more incidents. Notice how the structures have grown, how they've formed networks. Marcus studied the images. The anomalies had spread through entire regions of the brain. What happened to these people? They disappeared, not taken, just left, walked away from their lives, last seen heading into the restricted zone, never came back. Where did they go? To whatever's out there. Whatever's doing this. They completed the transformation, became what they were being prepared to become. Marcus felt sick. How long do I have? Based on your single exposure. Maybe 6 months before the second incident. After that, they accelerate. You'll experience one every few weeks. Within a year, you'll be fully converted. Unless I resist. You can't resist. The pull gets stronger. The compulsion becomes irresistible. Winters closed the files. I've watched dozens try to fight it. They all failed. Eventually, they all go back. Then why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. Because even if you can't change the outcome, you can prepare for it. Document your experiences. Leave records for others. Help us understand what happens to the people who complete the process. Marcus stood. There has to be a way to stop it. If there is, I haven't found it. And I've spent 5 years looking. Winters walked him to the door. But maybe you'll be different. Maybe you'll find something I missed. Marcus drove back to base in the pre-dawn darkness. His head throbbed, his thoughts felt fuzzy, and somewhere in the back of his mind he could feel it, the pull, calling him back to the southern route, back to the spot where he'd lost 21 seconds, back to whatever was waiting there in the spaces between reality. He checked his watch, 3:45 a.m., the same time it always happened. Marcus pulled over, closed his eyes, tried to fight the compulsion, but he couldn't. His hands moved to the steering wheel. His foot pressed the accelerator, and he found himself driving south, toward the restricted zone, toward the stretch of road where cameras couldn't see and time didn't work right. He tried to stop, tried to turn around, but his body wouldn't obey. The pull was too strong now, and ahead, on the empty desert road, a light appeared. White, brilliant, waiting. Marcus slammed on the brakes. The vehicle skidded, tires screaming against asphalt. He threw the gear shift into park with such force, something cracked in the mechanism. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. "No," he said aloud. "Not again." The light pulsed, once, twice, like a heartbeat visible in the darkness. Marcus forced his door open and stumbled out onto the road. The desert air was cold against his skin, real, physical, something to anchor him to this reality instead of whatever waited in that brilliance. He walked away from the light. Each step felt like moving through molasses. His legs trembled, his vision blurred at the edges, but he kept moving, one foot in front of the other, away from the pull, away from the thing that wanted to change him. Behind him, the light grew brighter. Marcus could feel heat on his back now. Not natural heat, this was different. Penetrating, like it was warming him from the inside out, heating the anomaly in his brain, activating something that had been dormant. His phone rang. Marcus pulled it from his pocket with shaking hands. Unknown number. "Hello? Lieutenant Cole." The voice was distorted, mechanical, not quite human. "You're making this difficult. Who is this? You know who we are. You've seen us, felt us. We're in your thoughts now, part of your neural architecture." Marcus stopped walking. "Get out of my head." "Impossible. The integration is too far advanced. In 3 more sessions you'll be complete. You'll understand. You'll want to help. I'll never help you. That's fear talking. The human part of you that clings to what it knows. But the changed part, the part we've enhanced, it knows better. It knows what's coming, what humanity needs." Marcus looked back at the light. It had moved closer, no longer on the road behind him, now hovering maybe 50 yards away. Close enough that he could see its shape, not round, more like a polyhedron, geometric. Perfect. "Why me?" Marcus asked. "Why any of us?" "Because you're capable of growth, evolution. Most humans are locked in their patterns, unable to adapt. But you, Lieutenant, you question. You observe. You change when presented with new information. That's rare. That's valuable. So you're recruiting. We're preparing. First contact requires intermediaries, people who can translate between vastly different modes of consciousness. You're being prepared for that role. By force. By necessity. If we asked permission, fear would make you refuse. You'd never willingly allow what needs to happen. So, we begin without permission. And by the time you understand, you'll be grateful. Marcus felt his legs moving again. Not away from the light this time, toward it. He tried to stop. Couldn't. This is why resistance fails, the voice continued. You're fighting yourself now. The changed part wants to complete. The unchanged part wants to flee. Guess which one is stronger? Marcus's feet carried him forward, 20 yards from the light. 15. He could see details now. The surface wasn't solid. It rippled like water. Like reality itself was thin here, permeable. I won't let you win, Marcus said through gritted teeth. You already have. 3 sessions, Lieutenant, then you'll see everything clearly. Then you'll thank us. The call disconnected. Marcus was 10 yards from the light when he saw movement. Shapes emerging from that rippling surface. Tall. Thin. The same figures from his dreams. From his fragmented memories. They weren't gray. That's what he noticed first. They were almost translucent. Like they existed partially in this dimension and partially in another. He could see through them, see the stars beyond their forms. One of them raised a hand, long fingers, too many joints. Marcus's vision went white. When it cleared, he was standing in the white room again. But this time he was conscious, aware, able to look around. The room had no corners, no edges, just continuous white surface that glowed from within. And the figures surrounded him. 6 of them, maybe more. They moved in ways that hurt to watch, directions that shouldn't exist. One approached. Its face was almost human. Almost, but the proportions were wrong. Eyes too large, mouth too small. And when it looked at him, Marcus felt something probe his thoughts. Do you understand yet? Not words, concepts, transmitted directly into his consciousness. No, Marcus thought back. I understand you're violating me. Changing me without consent, that's all I understand. Consent is a luxury species have before first contact. After, there is only adaptation or extinction. We're helping you adapt. By turning me into something I'm not. By turning you into something you could be. Your species has potential, but you're limited by biology, by short lifespans and chemical consciousness. We're offering an upgrade. I didn't ask for an upgrade. You asked questions. That's the same thing. Curiosity is consent in its earliest form. Marcus tried to move. Couldn't. His body was held by something invisible. Force? Gravity? Or just the will of these things that existed partially outside normal physics? The figure raised its hand to Marcus's forehead. He felt pressure. Not painful, just present. Like something was being adjusted inside his skull. 3 more sessions, the thought came. Then you'll join the others. The ones who completed the transformation. The ones who now serve as bridges. Where are they? Marcus demanded. The people who disappeared. Where did they go? They're here, with us. Learning, growing, becoming what humanity will need when we reveal ourselves. When? Soon. Your governments know we're here. They've known for decades, but they've hidden the truth, controlled the narrative, prevented preparation. We're done waiting for them to act. In 6 months, we reveal ourselves to everyone. And we need people like you to help your species accept what's happening. They won't accept it. They will because they'll have no choice, because we're not asking anymore. We're arriving, and you'll help them understand we're not invaders. We're partners, guides. The next step in human evolution. The pressure in Marcus's skull increased. He could feel the anomaly growing, spreading, connecting to parts of his brain he'd never consciously used, and with the growth came understanding. He could suddenly see patterns he'd never noticed, mathematical relationships in the structure of the room, harmonic frequencies in the movements of the figures around him. His consciousness was expanding, perceiving dimensions he'd never known existed. It was terrifying and exhilarating. "No," Marcus said, fighting the euphoria. "I won't be your puppet." "You're not a puppet, you're a volunteer. You volunteered the moment you noticed patterns others missed, the moment you asked questions instead of accepting easy answers. We only accelerate what you already wanted." "I never wanted this. You wanted truth, understanding, knowledge of what exists beyond your limited perception. That's exactly what we're giving you." The pressure released. Marcus gasped, sucking in air that tasted like ozone and starlight. Second session complete, the thought came. One more and you'll be ready. Until then, try not to fight so hard. The transition is easier when you accept it. Everything went white again. When Marcus opened his eyes, he was sitting in his vehicle at the depot. The engine was running, the heater was on, everything normal, except his watch showed 4:15 a.m. Not 4:07. He'd been gone 8 minutes longer than last time. 30 minutes total. The gaps were growing exponentially. Marcus's hands were steady now. The trembling had stopped. His head no longer ached. In fact, he felt better than he had in years. Sharper, clearer, more aware. He looked at the facility in the distance, saw things he'd never noticed before. Heat signatures through walls, radio frequency patterns dancing through the air, satellite trajectories overhead. The anomaly in his brain wasn't just growing, it was activating, giving him perception beyond normal human capacity. Marcus knew he should be terrified, should report to medical, should tell someone what was happening. But part of him didn't want to. Part of him wanted to know what came next. What happened after the third session, what the others had become. And that part was growing stronger. He touched his forehead, felt nothing unusual from the outside. But inside he could sense it. The structure, the network, the thing that was making him more than human, and less. Marcus started the engine and drove toward the base, toward medical checkpoints that wouldn't detect what was happening to him, toward debriefings where he'd lie about his memories, toward the inevitability of a third session he couldn't prevent. The sun was rising behind him, painting the desert in shades of gold and red. It looked different now, more vivid, more dimensional, like he was seeing wavelengths he'd never perceived before. The change was accelerating, and Marcus wasn't sure he wanted to stop it anymore. Except, Marcus sat in the driver's seat, hands still gripping the wheel, and realized something was different. The blankness wasn't complete anymore. There were fragments, flashes of images that came and went like lightning. White walls, but not smooth, textured, organic, breathing. A table, cold against his back, unable to move but aware, fully conscious. And voices, not voices exactly. Concepts transmitted directly into his thoughts. Words without sound. You are ready sooner than expected. His resistance accelerates the integration. Good. We need more like him. Marcus pressed his palms against his eyes. The fragments were getting clearer. He could almost see them now. The tall figures, 7 of them surrounding the table, examining him with instruments that looked like they were made of light. One of them had touched his forehead, and Marcus had felt something pierce his skull. Not painful, not exactly, but invasive, like fingers reaching into his brain, rearranging things, connecting pathways that shouldn't connect. He'd tried to scream. His throat hadn't worked. He'd tried to fight. His body hadn't responded. And then the voice in his head, "Don't fight. It only makes the pain worse. Accept the gift. Embrace the evolution." "No," Marcus said aloud in his truck. "I didn't accept anything." But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Part of him had accepted it. The part that was curious. The part that wanted to understand. The part that had been changed. His phone buzzed. Text from Ramirez. "Where are you? They're looking for you." Marcus checked his GPS. He was at the depot. But he didn't remember driving here. Didn't remember parking. Didn't remember the entire journey after the light appeared. 22 minutes. Gone. Stolen. And this time, they'd taken more than just time. He could feel it. The structure in his brain had grown. Spread. He knew this without seeing a scan. Could sense the changes happening in real time. Neural pathways forming. Connections strengthening. Something foreign becoming familiar. Marcus climbed out of the truck. His legs felt strange again. Disconnected. But also stronger somehow. More coordinated. He walked 20 feet to the depot entrance and realized he'd been counting his steps without trying. Knew exactly how long each stride was. Could calculate his arrival time to the millisecond. That wasn't normal. Inside the depot, 3 security personnel waited. One of them was Vance. "Lieutenant Cole," she said carefully. "Are you all right?" "I don't know. You were scheduled for standard patrol, not convoy duty. Why were you on the southern route?" "I couldn't stop myself. Something pulled me there." Vance exchanged glances with the security team. "We need to take you to medical right now. I know what you'll find. The structure's bigger, I can feel it. That's why we need to scan you, document the changes." Marcus followed them to the medical wing. The MRI took 30 minutes. When the technician pulled up the results, even she couldn't hide her shock. The anomaly had doubled in size. What had been a small cluster in his frontal lobe now branched through multiple regions, tendrils of foreign material spreading through his neural tissue like roots. Dr. Patterson arrived within minutes. He studied the scans without speaking for a long time. "This is unprecedented," he said finally. 2 incidents in 72 hours, and this level of growth. I've never seen integration happen this fast. What does it mean? Marcus asked, though part of him already knew. It means they're accelerating your transformation. Whatever timeline they normally follow, they're compressing it. You're being prioritized. Why? I don't know, but I have a theory. Patterson pulled up Marcus's psychological profile. You're a leader. People trust you. Follow your example. If they can convert you, change you into someone who accepts their presence, you could influence others. I would never do that. You might not have a choice. Once the integration completes, your thoughts won't be entirely your own anymore. You'll think you're making decisions, but they'll be influenced, guided, shaped by whatever's connected to that structure in your brain. Marcus felt his hands clench. Can you stop it? We tried removal once. The patient died. The structure had integrated too deeply. Removing it meant removing critical brain tissue. Patterson closed the files. The only option is to slow the progression. Keep you away from the southern route. Prevent further exposures. That won't work. The pull is too strong. I barely made it 3 days before I went back. Then we'll have to contain you. Keep you in a secured facility where you can't access the route. I'm not a prisoner. No. But you're a security risk. If they complete your transformation, you'll have classified information in your head. Information they can access through that structure. We can't allow that. Marcus stood. "You're not locking me up." "Lieutenant," I said, "no. I'll find another way. Dr. Winters mentioned research. Methods to resist the compulsion. I'll try those first. Dr. Winters is no longer affiliated with this program. Her methods are untested. Dangerous. More dangerous than becoming a puppet for something we don't understand?" Patterson hesitated. "I can give you 1 week. If the compulsion returns before then, if you experience another incident, you'll be placed in protective custody. No arguments." "Agreed." Marcus left the facility that morning. He had 1 week to find a solution. 1 week before they locked him away or the transformation completed. He drove back to Rachel. Found Dr. Winters in her garage, surrounded by equipment that looked like a cross between medical devices and something from a science fiction movie. "Back already?" she said. That was fast. "Second incident, 3 days after the first. The structure's growing." Winters studied him carefully. "Show me your hands." Marcus held them out. They were trembling slightly. "Been doing that since this morning." "Neural integration. The structure's connecting to your motor cortex. You'll experience tremors, muscle spasms, maybe even brief paralysis as your brain adapts to the foreign material." She led him to a chair surrounded by sensors. "Sit, I want to try something." "What?" "Electromagnetic interference. If the structure is receiving signals from outside your brain, from whatever's out there, maybe we can disrupt the connection, block the compulsion." She placed a device on his head. It looked like a helmet made of wire and circuits. When she activated it, Marcus felt a buzzing sensation. Not painful, just strange. "How do you feel?" Winters asked. "Weird, fuzzy, like there's static in my thoughts." "Good, that means it's working. The device is creating interference patterns that should disrupt any external signals." She adjusted settings. "Try to remember the pull, the compulsion to drive the southern route." Marcus focused, tried to feel that magnetic draw that had controlled him before. It was still there, but distant, muffled, like hearing music through a wall. "It's weaker," he said. "I can feel it, but it's not overwhelming." "Excellent, this is promising." Winters removed the helmet. "The effect is temporary, but if we can refine the design, make it portable, you could wear it continuously. Keep the compulsion at bay." "For how long? I don't know. Days? Weeks? Eventually, the structure might adapt. Learn to work around the interference, but it buys you time." "Time for what?" Winters met his eyes. "Time to decide. Do you want to complete the transformation? Become what they're making you into? Or do you want to fight it? Try to maintain your humanity even if it means living with that thing in your brain forever." Marcus thought about the White Room, the voices in his head, the feeling of being violated at the most fundamental level. "I want to fight. Then we start now. I'll build you a portable unit. You'll wear it 24/7. We'll monitor your neural activity, track the structure's growth, and if we're lucky, we'll find a way to stop it before the conversion completes. And if we're not lucky, then at least we'll document what happens, leave a record for the next person, help them understand what they're facing." Marcus spent the next 6 days in Winter's garage. She worked around the clock, building and refining the interference device, testing frequencies, monitoring his brain activity, looking for patterns in the structure's growth. On the 7th day, Marcus woke up at 3:45 a.m. The pull was back, stronger than ever. The helmet Winters had built sat on the workbench beside him. He reached for it. His hand wouldn't move. Marcus tried again. Nothing. His body had stopped obeying his commands. He stood up, walked to the door, climbed into his truck, all without choosing to do any of it. The structure had grown enough to control him now, override his decisions, force him to return. Marcus tried to scream. His voice didn't work. He drove south, toward the restricted zone, toward the southern route. And this time, he knew he wouldn't be coming back the same person. The transformation was nearly complete. All that remained was one final visit to the White Room, one final adjustment, and then Marcus Cole would cease to exist as he'd been. He'd become something new, something they needed him to be. The light appeared ahead, brilliant, waiting. Marcus's last independent thought was a prayer that someone would remember who he'd been, before the change, before the gap, before everything. Then the light took him, and when he returned, Marcus smiled. Because now he understood. Now he was ready. Now he could begin his true purpose. Grant Sullivan had been a civilian contractor at Groom Lake for 11 months, and in that time, he'd learned 3 rules for survival. Don't ask questions, don't take pictures, and don't look up after dark unless you're prepared for answers you won't like. Tonight, he was breaking Rule 3. The maintenance crew was working on a radio tower about 8 miles south of the main facility. Standard repair job. Replace some corroded bolts, check the wiring, make sure everything was secure before the winter storms hit. Should have been done by sundown, but Brett Kimball's power wrench had died halfway through, and they'd had to finish the job manually. Now it was past midnight, and they were packing up tools under a sky so clear you could see the Milky Way like a river of light overhead. "Hand me that ratchet," Brett said, securing the last panel. Grant reached into the toolbox. His fingers closed around the metal handle, and he felt it. A vibration, subtle but distinct, like the tool was resonating with something. "You feel that?" he asked. "Feel what?" Grant held up the ratchet. It was vibrating in his hand, creating a faint humming sound. He set it down on the metal toolbox. The hum transferred to the box, making it ring softly like a tuning fork. Brett climbed down from the tower. That's weird. Everything metal's doing it. Grant touched the truck's hood. Same vibration, same hum. He could feel it through his boots now, coming up from the ground itself. "Earthquake?" Brett suggested. "Wrong frequency. Earthquakes rumble. This is..." Grant paused, searching for the right word. "Resonating." The air pressure changed, suddenly, dramatically. Grant's ears popped, his sinuses ached. It felt like standing in an elevator that was descending too fast. "We should go," Brett said, his voice tight. Grant agreed. They threw their tools in the truck bed, not bothering to organize them. Just toss and go. Get back to the facility. Report the weird vibrations to someone whose job it was to figure out what they meant. Grant climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. The truck was completely dead. "Try yours," Grant said. Brett's truck was parked 20 feet away. He jogged to it, climbed in. Grant watched through the windshield as Brett turned his key. No lights, no engine, nothing. Both vehicles dead at the same time. Grant looked at his watch. The digital display was blank. He tried his phone. Black screen. Wouldn't turn on even though it had been at 70% battery 5 minutes ago. "Grant." Brett's voice was barely above a whisper. "Look up." Grant didn't want to. Every instinct told him to keep his eyes down, get low, find cover. But he looked anyway. The sky had changed. Where there had been stars and darkness, there was now light. A single point of brilliant white luminescence directly overhead. Not moving, not blinking, just there. Present. Impossible to ignore. It reminded Grant of a star, but stars didn't pulse. This thing was breathing, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. Or maybe his heartbeat was matching it. He couldn't tell anymore. "What is that?" Brett asked. "I don't know." The light began to move. Not drifting or floating. It descended in a perfectly straight line, like it was following an invisible cable from space to Earth. No sound, no exhaust trail, just smooth, impossible motion. Grant's legs told him to run. His brain told him to hide, but his body wouldn't respond. He stood there, frozen, watching that light drop from the sky like a star falling in slow motion. It stopped at maybe 500 feet, close enough that Grant could see it wasn't circular. It had geometry, edges, facets, like a crystal or a cut diamond, but the size of a house. "Brett," Grant said slowly, "get in your truck, lock the doors. It won't start. I don't care, just get inside." Brett moved. Grant heard the truck door slam. He should do the same, should get inside his own vehicle, put metal between himself and whatever that thing was. But he couldn't move, couldn't look away. The light began to change. Not dimming, transforming. The single point of brilliance started to stretch, horizontally at first, becoming elliptical. Then the ellipse developed a split down the center, like a cell dividing. 2 lights now, identical, both hovering at the same altitude. Then 3. The center light split again, and now there were 3 distinct points of luminescence arranged in a perfect triangle, each one pulsing with that same heartbeat rhythm. Grant felt his chest tighten. The vibration in the ground intensified. His teeth chattered even though he wasn't cold. The metal toolbox in the truck bed started rattling, tools bouncing and clanging against each other. The 3 lights began to move. Not together, independently. One shot to the left, covering a 1/4 mile in less than a second. Another dropped down to maybe 100 feet above the radio tower. The third rose higher, climbing until it was almost invisible against the stars. Then they stopped, perfectly synchronized, like they were nodes in some larger pattern Grant couldn't perceive. His watch started working again. The digital display flickered to life, showing 12:47 a.m. But the seconds weren't counting normally. They jumped. 12:47:03, 12:47:09, 12:47:14, like time itself was skipping. The truck's interior lights came on, not steadily, strobing, on off in rapid pulses that made Grant's head ache. "Brett," he shouted something. Grant couldn't make out the words over the sound of rattling tools and his own pulse hammering in his ears. The 3 lights began to converge. They moved toward each other with the same impossible precision they'd shown before. No acceleration, no deceleration. Just instant changes in position and velocity that made no physical sense. When they met, they didn't collide. They merged. 3 became 2. 2 became 1. And the single light that remained was brighter than before. Brighter than all 3 combined. So intense, Grant had to shield his eyes. The light shot straight up. Not gradually, not with any kind of reasonable speed. It just vanished into the sky, leaving a momentary afterimage on Grant's retinas. Gone in less than a second, leaving only stars and darkness, and 2 men standing in the desert wondering if they'd actually seen what they thought they'd seen. The vibration stopped. The pressure normalized. Grant's watch started counting seconds normally again. He walked to Brett's truck on legs that felt like rubber. Brett was gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. "Did that just happen?" Brett asked. "Yeah. What the hell was it?" "I don't know." Grant tried his truck again. The engine turned over immediately, purring like nothing had been wrong. All the electronics worked. Phone, watch, radio, everything normal. Brett's truck started too. They sat in their respective vehicles for 5 minutes, neither speaking, just staring at the empty sky where impossible things had just occurred. Finally, Grant picked up his radio. "This is Maintenance 7. We're heading back to base. Job's complete." Static crackled. Then, "Copy that, Maintenance 7. Everything goes smooth?" Grant looked at Brett. Brett shook his head frantically. "Yeah," Grant lied. "No problems." "Roger. See you at the gate." Grant put the truck in drive and headed north. Brett followed in his vehicle. They maintained speed, didn't talk on the radio, didn't discuss what they'd seen, but Grant kept checking his rearview mirror, watching the sky behind them, looking for those lights to return. They didn't, not that night, but Grant knew with a certainty he couldn't explain that they would come back. Whatever had split the sky into 3 parts and then reunited, it wasn't done. It was testing something, measuring something, or preparing for something. The thought made his hands tighten on the steering wheel. At the security gate, the guard waved them through without much interest. Just another maintenance crew returning from a routine job, nothing unusual, nothing worth noting. Grant parked in the contractor lot and climbed out. Brett pulled up beside him. "We're not reporting this, are we?" Brett asked quietly. "What would we report? That we saw lights? That our trucks died for a few minutes? They'd tell us it was a test. Or atmospheric phenomena. Or that we were tired and seeing things. But we both saw it." "I know." Grant looked at his friend. "But unless you want to spend the next week being interviewed and evaluated and possibly losing your clearance, we keep this to ourselves." Brett nodded slowly. "Yeah, okay, we keep it quiet." They parted ways in the parking lot. Grant drove to his apartment in Rachel, the tiny town that existed because of the facility's presence. He showered, made coffee even though it was nearly 2 a.m., sat on his couch and tried to process what he'd witnessed. His hands were still shaking. He pulled out his laptop and started searching. UFO sightings near Groom Lake. Reports of lights splitting or merging. Anything that matched what he'd seen. Found nothing. Plenty of reports of single lights. Triangular formations. Fast-moving objects. But nothing about a light dividing into 3 distinct entities and then recombining. Grant closed the laptop. Maybe it really had been a test. Some new drone technology. Some military experiment with light projection or holography. But that didn't explain the vibrations, or the electromagnetic pulse that killed both trucks simultaneously, or the way time had seemed to skip. His phone buzzed. Text from Brett. "Can't sleep, you?" Grant typed back, "No. Keep seeing it." "Same. Want to talk?" "Tomorrow. Get some rest." But Grant didn't rest. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of the encounter. The descent. The split. The triangular formation. The merger. The disappearance. It had felt purposeful, deliberate, like a demonstration. But a demonstration of what? And for whose benefit? At 3:47 a.m., Grant's apartment lights flickered. He sat up, heart racing. The lights steadied. Outside his window, the street was quiet. No unusual sounds. No vibrations. Just a normal desert night. Grant lay back down and closed his eyes, and saw 3 points of light behind his eyelids, pulsing, breathing, waiting. Grant didn't go back to work for 2 days. He called in sick, which wasn't entirely a lie. He felt sick, off balance, like something had shifted inside him that night under the radio tower. Brett called him on the 2nd day. "You okay?" "Yeah, just needed some time." "Me too. I've been having these dreams. 3 lights, always 3. They're trying to show me something, but I can't figure out what. Grant had been having the same dreams. What do you think it means? I don't know, but I checked the maintenance logs. Nobody else reported anything unusual that night. No equipment failures, no strange readings. It's like it only happened to us. Maybe it did. Silence on the line. Then, you think it was targeting us specifically? I think we were in the right place at the right time. Or the wrong place. Depends on how you look at it. Are you coming back to work? Grant looked out his window at the desert stretching towards the facility. Yeah, tomorrow. We need to act normal. Can't let anyone know something's bothering us. Right. Normal. Brett has laughed without humor. Sure. The next morning, Grant reported for his shift. Everything seemed routine. Work assignments posted on the board. Same faces in the break room. Same terrible coffee in the pot. But Grant noticed things he'd never paid attention to before. The way certain people watched the sky when they thought no one was looking. The way conversations stopped when he entered a room. Small things. Probably meaningless. Probably paranoia. Probably. His supervisor, Tom Richards, called him into the office. You feeling better? Tom asked. Yeah, just a bug. Good, because I need you for a special job tonight. Another radio tower, same area as last time. Grant's stomach dropped. Can't someone else do it? You know that equipment. You and Kimball are the go-to guys for that sector. Tom pulled up a map on his computer. Tower 12, about 6 miles from where you were working Monday. What's wrong with it? Signal interference. Started Tuesday morning. Intermittent at first, now it's constant. We need someone to check the hardware, make sure nothing's corroded or damaged. Grant wanted to refuse. Wanted to say he couldn't go back out there. But that would raise questions. Questions led to evaluations. Evaluations led to losing clearance. What time? He asked. 2200, after sunset. Cooler that way. Brett coming too? Unless he's still sick. Grant left the office and found Brett in the equipment bay, organizing tools. We're going back, Grant said quietly. Brett looked up. Where? Radio tower. Different one, but same area. Tonight. Brett's hands stopped moving. I don't want to go. Neither do I. But if we refuse, they'll want to know why. What if it happens again? Then we document it. Take pictures. Video, get proof. You think they'll let us keep proof? Good point. Grant hadn't thought that through. We'll be careful. Keep everything on personal phones. Don't use facility equipment. Brett nodded slowly. Okay, but if those lights show up, I'm leaving. I don't care what that means for my job. Deal. They spent the afternoon preparing, checking equipment, making sure all their tools worked. Grant brought a spare battery pack for his phone, fully charged. If the electromagnetic pulse happened again, maybe an external battery would survive. At 21:30, they loaded the truck and headed south. The sun had set an hour ago, leaving the desert in purple twilight that faded to black as they drove. Tower 12 stood alone on a small rise, its red warning lights blinking against the stars. Grant parked at the base and killed the engine. For a moment, they just sat there, both scanning the sky. Looks clear, Brett said. So far. They worked quickly, climbed the tower, checked connections, tested signal strength. Everything appeared normal. No corrosion, no damage, no obvious reason for the interference Tom had mentioned. Grant was tightening the last bolt when his wrench started vibrating. Not much, just a faint tremor, but enough to notice. Brett, I feel it. The vibration increased. Grant's arms tingled. The metal tower rang like a bell. a low note that resonated in his chest. "We need to get down," Grant said. They descended fast, not bothering with safety protocols, just climbing down as quickly as possible. Grant's feet hit the ground and he looked up. There, a single point of light, directly overhead. "No," Brett whispered. "No, not again." The light was descending. Same impossible straight-line motion. Same pulsing rhythm. Grant pulled out his phone and started recording. His hands were shaking, making the video unsteady, but he kept filming. This time, they'd have proof. The light stopped at 500 feet. Close enough to see its crystalline structure. Close enough to make Grant's skin crawl. It split. 1 became 2. 2 became 3. The same triangular formation as before. Brett was backing toward his truck. "I'm leaving." "Wait. Record this. We need 2 angles." Brett fumbled with his phone, almost dropped it, got the camera app open. The 3 lights began their dance. Left, right, up, down, moving in patterns that seemed random but probably weren't. Grant zoomed in on one of the lights. Through his phone's camera, he could see details invisible to the naked eye. The surface wasn't smooth. It had markings, symbols, designs. Too distant to be sure, but definitely not natural. His phone screen flickered. The video froze. When it restarted, the timestamp was wrong. It showed 23:14, but Grant's watch read 22:58. 16 minutes. His phone thought 16 minutes had passed in seconds. The 3 lights converged, merged, became one again. But this time the light didn't leave. It descended further. To 300 feet. 200. So close, Grant could feel heat radiating from it. Not normal heat. This was different. It made his skin tingle. Made his hair stand on end. The light pulsed once, bright enough to hurt. Then it shot sideways. Not up, not into the sky, but horizontally across the desert, moving parallel to the ground at incredible speed. In 3 seconds, it crossed 10 miles and vanished behind a mountain range. Gone. Grant and Brett stood in the sudden darkness, breathing hard. "Did you get it?" Grant asked. Brett checked his phone. "Yeah, I got... Wait, what?" The video's corrupted. It's just black frames. No audio. Nothing. Grant checked his own recording. Same thing, black screen, static audio. The entire event had been captured as blank data. "How is that possible?" Brett demanded. "We both recorded it. We saw it happen. But the videos show nothing?" Grant tried to replay the file again. This time, his phone shut down. Wouldn't restart. Just a black screen despite being fully charged. Brett's phone did the same. "They don't want us to have proof," Grant said. "Who's they?" "I don't know. But someone's making sure we can't document what we're seeing." The tower's warning lights came back on. Red beacon flashing normally. No more vibrations. No more interference. Grant's truck started on the first try. They drove back in silence. Didn't discuss what they'd seen. Didn't try to make sense of it. Just drove. At the security gate, a different guard was on duty. Older guy. Gray hair. He looked at their IDs and then at their faces. "You boys look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "Long night," Grant replied. "I bet." The guard handed back their IDs. "Word of advice? Whatever you saw out there, keep it to yourselves. Questions don't get answered around here. They just get you reassigned." Grant nodded and drove through. In his rearview mirror, he saw the guard watching them. Not with suspicion, with sympathy. Like he knew exactly what they'd experienced. Like he'd experienced it himself. Grant couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Not just at work, everywhere. In his apartment, at the grocery store, even in his truck driving the highway at night. It had been 4 days since the second encounter at Tower 12. 4 days of pretending everything was normal while his world tilted sideways. The corrupted phone videos bothered him most. Not that they were deleted or confiscated, but corrupted. Like the light itself generated interference that destroyed electronic recordings. Or like something wanted documentation to fail without making it obvious they were being censored. Brett was handling it worse. He'd called in sick again. When Grant visited him, Brett looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles, trembling hands, paranoid glances at the windows. "They're watching," Brett said. "I can feel it." "Who? I don't know. But someone knows we saw something. Someone's keeping track. You're just stressed, we both are." "Am I?" Brett pulled up his sleeve. His forearm showed a mark, circular, about the size of a quarter. The skin was slightly discolored, like a faint bruise. "This appeared yesterday, right where I felt a sharp pain during that second encounter." Grant examined the mark. It looked almost like a burn, but without inflammation. Just a perfect circle of altered skin. "Did you show a doctor?" "And tell them what? That I got marked by a UFO? They'd section me." "It could be a skin condition. Ringworm, contact dermatitis." "It's not." Brett rolled his sleeve down. "I checked online. Other people have these. Witnesses to strange lights, close encounters, same kind of marks, always circular, always appearing after electromagnetic events." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we were tagged, marked, like animals in a study." Grant felt cold. "That's crazy." "Is it? We both saw the same thing, twice, same pattern, same lights. And now I have this mark. What if you have one too?" Grant checked himself. Arms, legs, torso, nothing visible. But when he looked at his left shoulder blade in Brett's bathroom mirror, he found it. A mark identical to Brett's. Same size, same coloration, same perfect circle. His hands started shaking. "When did this happen?" he asked. "During the missing time. That 16 minutes your phone skipped, something happened then. Something we don't remember." Grant pulled his shirt back on. His mind raced. If they'd been marked, it meant close proximity. Closer than 300 feet. Maybe even physical contact, which meant missing time, gaps in memory, abduction. "We need to document this," Grant said. "Medical records, photographs, proof that something's happening to us." "And then what? Go public? Tell the media? We signed NDAs. We'll be arrested for violating security." "Then we keep our own records. Written, dated, hidden somewhere safe." Brett nodded. "My uncle has a storage unit in Tonopah. I could keep documents there. Do it. Write down everything. Dates, times, what we saw, what we experienced. If something happens to us, at least there'll be a record." They spent the next hour documenting everything. Grant photographed Brett's mark. Brett photographed Grant's. They wrote detailed accounts of both encounters. Times, locations, descriptions. Grant made 3 copies of everything and gave one to Brett. "If I disappear or act strange, you know something's wrong. Use this to find help." "Same to you." That night, Grant couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hyper-aware of the mark on his shoulder. It didn't hurt, didn't itch, just existed. A reminder that something had touched him without his knowledge or permission. At 3:47 a.m., his apartment lights flickered again. Grant sat up, grabbed his phone, started recording. The light steadied, nothing unusual, just normal electrical fluctuation. But when Grant checked the recording, his phone showed a gap. The timestamp jumped from 3:47:03 to 3:47:22. 19 seconds. Missing. Gone from his memory and his phone's memory. Grant checked himself in the mirror. No new marks, no signs of anything unusual. But something had happened. Another gap, another moment stolen. He looked at the window, drew the curtain back. Outside, the street was empty. No cars, no people, just amber streetlights and darkness. But on the horizon, toward the facility, Grant saw something. A faint glow, pulsing. 3 distinct points of light arranged in a triangle. Too far to be certain. Could be helicopters. Could be drones. Could be anything. But Grant knew what it was. They were out there, doing whatever they did. And tomorrow night, or the night after, they'd come closer. They'd continue the pattern. Continue whatever process they'd started. Grant closed the curtain and returned to bed. Sleep didn't come. At 7 a.m., his supervisor called. "Grant, I need you to come in early. There's a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind we discuss in person. Get here ASAP." Grant dressed quickly and drove to the facility. The guard at the gate directed him to administration, a building Grant had never entered before. Inside, he was met by 2 people in civilian clothes, a man and a woman, both in their 40s, both with expressions that revealed nothing. "Mr. Sullivan," the woman said, "I'm Agent Carlisle. This is Agent Monroe. We need to ask you some questions about your recent work assignments." Grant's stomach tightened. "Am I in trouble?" "That depends. Have a seat." They led him to a windowless interview room. Same setup as a police interrogation. Table, chairs, one-way mirror, recording equipment visible in the corner. Carlisle placed a tablet on the table. "We've been monitoring electromagnetic anomalies in the southern sector. Your work areas specifically, Tower 7 and Tower 12. Okay. On the nights you were working those locations, our sensors detected unusual activity. Radiation spikes, magnetic field distortions, equipment malfunctions. We had some truck trouble," Grant admitted, "but we got everything working again. Did you see anything unusual? Lights, aircraft, anything that might explain these readings?" Here it was, the moment of truth. Grant could lie, say no, protect himself. Or he could tell them what he'd seen and hope they'd investigate. "Define unusual," Grant said carefully. Carlisle leaned forward. "Don't play games, Mr. Sullivan. We know something happened. We have data showing massive electromagnetic interference coinciding with your presence in those areas. We need to know what you witnessed." Grant made a decision. "I saw lights, both nights. Bright. They moved in patterns that didn't make sense, split apart and came back together. Did you record any of this?" "I tried. The recordings were corrupted, just black screens and static." "Did anyone else see these lights?" "Brett Kimball was with me. He saw everything I saw." Monroe typed on his tablet. "And you didn't report this through proper channels?" "I didn't think anyone would believe me. And I was worried about my clearance." "Your clearance is the least of your concerns right now." Carlisle pulled up files on her tablet. "Mr. Sullivan, in the past week, we've had 17 reports of similar phenomena. Different locations, different witnesses, all describing lights that split and merge, all experiencing electromagnetic effects." Grant felt his pulse quicken. 17? That many? "It's accelerating. Whatever's causing this, it's becoming more active, more visible." She showed him images, photographs from security cameras, thermal imaging, radar data, all showing the same pattern. 3 lights in triangular formation. "What is it?" Grant asked. "We don't know, but we need people who've had direct encounters. People who can help us understand what we're dealing with." Carlisle closed her tablet. How would you feel about participating in a study, medical monitoring, interviews, observational assignments? What kind of observational assignments? Going back to the locations where you saw these lights, documenting your experiences, helping us establish patterns. Grant thought about the marks on his shoulder, the missing time, the sense of being changed. Will I get answers? We'll share what we know as we learn it. But this is classified research. Nothing leaves the program. What if I say no? Then you'll be reassigned, somewhere far from here. You'll never work near Groom Lake again. Not really a choice. Grant could leave and spend the rest of his life wondering what had happened to him, or he could stay and maybe find answers. I'm in, he said. But I have conditions. I want Brett included, and I want access to all data related to my encounters. Agreed. Report to Medical Building 3 tomorrow at 0800. Bring Kimball. Carlyle stood. One more thing. The marks on your shoulder. We know about them. Grant froze. How? Because everyone who's had close proximity to these lights develops them. We've documented 43 cases. Yours and Kimball's make 45. She moved to the door. We don't know what they mean yet, but we're going to find out. After they left, Grant sat alone in the interview room. 45 people. Marked, changed. All experiencing the same thing. This wasn't random. This was systematic, deliberate. Someone or something was selecting people, marking them, preparing them. For what? Grant touched his shoulder, felt the mark through his shirt. Tomorrow, he'd get answers, or at least he'd start asking the right questions. Medical Building 3 was a nondescript concrete structure on the facility's east side. No signs, no windows, just a door with a card reader and a guard who checked Grant's ID twice before letting him in. Brett was already in the waiting room, looking worse than before. His hands shook as he filled out paperwork. They got to you too? Brett asked. Yeah. You agreed to the study. What choice did we have? A nurse called them back. They were separated into different exam rooms. Grant found himself in a space that looked more like a research lab than a medical facility. Scanning equipment, monitors, computers displaying data he didn't understand. Dr. Patricia Hayes entered. Late 50s. Tired eyes, lab coat over civilian clothes. Mr. Sullivan, thank you for agreeing to participate. She gestured to an examination table. I'll need to do a full scan. It's non-invasive, just imaging. Should take about 30 minutes. Grant lay down. The scanning equipment hummed to life, moving around him in slow arcs. How many people are in this study? Grant asked. Currently, 45 confirmed cases, but we suspect there are more who haven't reported their experiences. What exactly are you studying? The marks, the physiological changes, the patterns. Dr. Hayes adjusted a monitor. When someone has close proximity to these phenomena, something happens at a cellular level. The marks you see on your skin are just the visible manifestation. Manifestation of what? We're not sure. But your blood work shows elevated levels of certain isotopes, rare earth elements that shouldn't be present in human biology. And your brain scans. She paused. Have you been experiencing any unusual perceptions? Enhanced senses? Precognitive moments? Grant thought about the feeling of being watched, the way he'd known the lights would return. Maybe. How did you know? Because everyone who's been marked experiences it. Some more than others. It's like the exposure activates dormant neural pathways, makes you more sensitive to certain frequencies, certain patterns. The scanning completed. Dr. Hayes pulled up the results. Interesting, she murmured. What? Your neural activity shows structures we haven't seen before. Not organic, not technology, something in between. She zoomed in on a section of Grant's brain scan. Here, in your frontal lobe, see these formations? Grant looked at the screen. Small, crystalline structures scattered through his brain tissue. They glowed faintly in the scan, like they were generating their own energy. What are they? We think they're markers, receivers, something that lets these phenomena track you, communicate with you. Dr. Hayes saved the scan. We found them in every marked individual. They grow over time, integrate deeper into neural tissue. Can you remove them? We don't recommend it. The one time we attempted surgical removal, the patient went into seizures, died on the table. She met his eyes. Whatever these things are, they're part of you now. Removing them would be like removing part of your brain. Grant felt sick. So, I'm stuck with this. You're changed by it. That's different than being stuck. Some participants report positive effects, enhanced intuition, better pattern recognition, heightened awareness. And the negative effects? Missing time, compulsive behavior, the feeling of being summoned. Most participants report returning to encounter sites without conscious decision, like something's pulling them back. Grant knew that feeling. He'd driven past Tower 12 3 times this week for no reason. Just circled the area, felt drawn to it. What do they want from us? Grant asked. That's what we're trying to determine. The leading theory is selection. They're choosing specific individuals based on criteria we don't understand, marking them, monitoring them, possibly preparing them for something. First contact? That's one theory. Another is that they're creating a network, connecting marked individuals through these neural structures, building a collective awareness, like a hive mind. Not exactly. You maintain individual consciousness, but you become part of a larger pattern, connected to others who've been marked, able to sense things normal humans can't. The door opened, Agent Carlyle entered. Dr. Hayes, we need to talk to Mr. Sullivan. She looked at Grant. Get dressed. We have something to show you. Grant followed Carlyle through corridors deep underground. They descended 3 levels, each requiring separate security clearances. Finally, they reached a room labeled Observation Deck. Inside, a dozen monitors showed feeds from cameras positioned around the restricted zone. And on every screen, Grant saw lights, some single, some in pairs, several in the triangular formation he'd witnessed. This is real time, Carlyle said. Right now, 17 simultaneous events. I don't understand. Why so many? Because something's happening. The frequency of encounters has increased exponentially in the past month. We're seeing patterns emerge. Coordination. Like they're building toward something. She pulled up a map. Red dots marked every encounter site in the past year. They formed a rough circle around the facility. Notice anything? Carlyle asked. Grant studied the pattern. The dots weren't random. They spiraled inward, each encounter closer to the center than the last. They're approaching the facility. Exactly. Whatever they want, they're taking their time, testing our responses, marking witnesses, and now they're inside our perimeter. One of the monitors showed live feed from Tower 7, the same tower where Grant had his first encounter, and hovering above it, a light, pulsing, waiting. That's happening right now? Grant asked. Yes, and we think they're waiting for something, or someone. Carlyle looked at him meaningfully. Grant understood. You think they're waiting for me? We think marked individuals trigger increased activity. When you're present, the phenomena become more visible, more interactive, like you're a beacon. So, what do you want me to do? Go back to Tower 7 tonight. We'll have equipment, monitoring. Full support team. But we need you there to see if we can establish communication. Communication? You want me to talk to them? We want to understand them, and they seem interested in you. Carlyle handed him a file. Read this. It contains everything we know, every theory, every analysis. Then decide if you're willing to go back. Grant took the file. It was thick, hundreds of pages. I'll read it, he said. But I want Brett with me. If I'm doing this, he should too. Agreed. Brief him. Get his consent. We leave at 2200. Grant found Brett in the waiting room. They sat in Grant's truck and went through the file together. It contained incident reports dating back 10 years. Photos. Videos that actually worked, though the image quality was poor. Medical data from marked individuals. One section detailed the growth patterns of the neural structures. They started small, microscopic, but over months they spread, connected, formed networks that resembled communication arrays. Another section theorized about purpose. Some researchers believed the marks were tracking devices. Others thought they were genetic markers for future abduction. A few suggested they were invitations, proof of contact that would matter during eventual first contact. This is insane, Brett said. They're saying we're being recruited, prepared for something. Does it feel wrong? Grant asked. I mean, are you scared? Or does part of you feel curious? Brett thought about it. Both. I'm terrified, but I also want to know. Want to understand. Like something inside me needs the answers. That's the structures. They're making us receptive, making us want contact. So they're controlling us, influencing. There's a difference. Brett closed the file. Are we going tonight? I am. You don't have to. Yes, I do. We're in this together. At 22 Nye, they drove south with a convoy of support vehicles. Carlyle led the operation. Dr. Hayes was there with medical equipment, and a team of researchers with instruments Grant didn't recognize. They set up at Tower 7. Cameras, sensors, recording devices. Grant and Brett stood at the tower's base, waiting. The desert was quiet. Stars overhead. No wind. No sounds except the hum of equipment. How long do we wait? Brett asked. As long as it takes. They didn't have to wait long. At 22:47 the vibrations started. Subtle at first, then building. Every piece of metal resonating with that same frequency. Grant looked up. There. A single point of light. Descending. The equipment went crazy. Sensors spiking. Cameras recording. But Grant wasn't watching the instruments. He was watching the light. It stopped at 300 feet, split into three, the triangular formation. Same as before, but this time something was different. The lights weren't just hovering. They were pulsing in a pattern. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2, 3, pause, like a signal, like they were trying to communicate. Grant felt something in his head. Not words, not thoughts, more like pressure. Like something was pressing against his consciousness from outside. You are marked, you are chosen. Do you understand? Not a voice. Just knowing. Certainty appearing in his mind. Yes, Grant said aloud. I understand. The lights pulsed faster, more excited. You will help. Bridge between. Prepare your kind. Prepare for what? Arrival, integration, evolution. When? Soon, very soon. The three lights converged, merged. The single light descended to 200 feet, close enough that Grant could feel its heat, and then it split again. But not into three, into dozens. The sky filled with lights, hundreds of them, all pulsing, all connected. A vast network of luminescence that covered the desert from horizon to horizon. Grant heard Carlyle shouting orders, heard equipment failing, heard Brett screaming, but Grant just stood there, watching, understanding this was it. This was what they'd been building toward. Not invasion, not abduction, invitation. The lights wanted humanity to join them, to evolve beyond flesh and biology, to become something more, and the marked individuals were the first step, the proof of concept, the bridges between what humans were and what they could become. The lights began to fade, one by one, blinking out like stars at dawn. When they were gone, Grant found himself on his knees. No memory of falling, no sense of how much time had passed. His watch showed 2:15. Over 3 hours. Gone. Carlyle was beside him. "Are you okay?" "I saw them, all of them, the whole network. What did they want?" "Us. They want us." Grant looked at his hands. They were glowing faintly. Same light as the marks, same pulsing rhythm. "It's starting," he said. "Whatever comes next, it's starting now." Behind him, every marked individual at the facility began to glow. 45 people, all connected, all changing, all becoming something new. But Grant barely noticed them. His attention was on Brett, who'd collapsed beside the tower. Dr. Hayes was already there, checking vitals, shouting for medical equipment. Grant crawled over. His legs wouldn't work properly. Everything felt distant, disconnected. "Brett? Brett, can you hear me?" Brett's eyes were open but unfocused. His skin had a faint luminescence, stronger than Grant's. The mark on his arm was glowing bright enough to see through his sleeve. "He's in shock," Dr. Hayes said. "Heart rate elevated, blood pressure spiking. We need to get him to medical." "What's happening to him?" "Same thing that's happening to all of you, but his reaction is more severe." She looked at Grant. "How do you feel?" Grant took inventory. His head ached, his skin tingled, but underneath the physical symptoms he felt something else, awareness. Like his consciousness had expanded beyond his skull. He could sense the other marked individuals. 45 points of connection forming a network across the facility. "I feel them," Grant said. "The others, I know where they are, what they're feeling." Dr. Hayes pulled out a scanner and ran it over Grant's head. "The neural structures are active, transmitting. You're all linked now." "Is that permanent?" "We don't know. This is unprecedented." They loaded Brett into an ambulance. Grant climbed in beside him. As they drove toward the medical building 3, Grant kept his hand on Brett's arm, feeling the pulse of light beneath the skin. "Stay with me," Grant whispered. "Don't let it take you." Brett's eyes flickered, focused slightly. "Can you hear them?" "Hear who?" "All of them, the voices. They're not speaking, just knowing, sharing." Grant could hear it too. Not voices exactly. More like a current of information flowing through the network. Thoughts, memories, experiences, all the marked individuals connected. Sharing consciousness. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. At Medical Building 3, they were met by a team of doctors and researchers. Brett was rushed to intensive care. Grant was led to an observation room where they ran tests. Brain scans, blood work, radiation measurements. All the while, Grant could feel the network pulsing, growing stronger, more integrated. Agent Carlyle entered the observation room. She looked exhausted. "We've got 45 people experiencing the same symptoms. Glowing marks, enhanced perception, mental connection. Whatever happened out there, it affected all of you simultaneously. We're linked, Grant said. They created a network using our neural structures. We're all nodes in something bigger. Can you control it? Can you disconnect? Grant tried, focused on shutting down the connection, blocking the flow of information. Nothing changed. The network remained constant, unbreakable. No, it's part of us now. Carlyle sat down heavily. This changes everything. We can't have military contractors walking around with telepathic connections to unknown entities. The security implications alone, it's not telepathy, Grant interrupted. It's more like shared awareness. I don't read thoughts. I just know things, feel things. There's a difference. Not much of one from where I'm sitting. She pulled up files on her tablet. We're implementing new protocols. All marked individuals will be monitored 24/7. You'll live in controlled housing on facility grounds. Limited contact with unmarked personnel. Regular medical evaluations. You're quarantining us. We're studying you. There's a difference. Not much of one from where I'm sitting, Grant echoed back. Over the next week, Grant learned the limits and capabilities of the network. He could sense other marked individuals within a certain range, about 50 miles. Beyond that, the connection faded to background noise. He could feel emotions. Strong ones, anyway. When someone in the network experienced fear or pain or joy, it rippled through all of them, and he could sense direction. When the lights returned, every marked individual knew, felt the pull, the compulsion to go to the encounter site. Brett recovered physically, but he was changed. More withdrawn, less certain. He spent hours staring at nothing, listening to the network. "Do you ever wonder if we're still ourselves?" Brett asked one evening in their shared quarters. "What do you mean?" "I mean, how much of what I'm thinking is actually mine? What if the network is influencing us, changing our thoughts without us noticing?" Grant had wondered the same thing, but every time he examined his thoughts, they felt authentic. Personal, like they came from him and only him. "I think we're still us," Grant said. "Just more connected, or less independent. Maybe those are the same thing." 2 weeks after the mass encounter, Carlyle called an assembly. All 45 marked individuals gathered in a conference room deep underground. Grant recognized some faces, other contractors, security personnel, even a few researchers, all of them showing the same faint luminescence, all connected to the network. Carlyle stood at the front. "You're probably wondering why you're all here. The truth is, we need to make a decision as a group." She pulled up satellite imagery, the entire restricted zone, and scattered across the desert hundreds of lights, not moving, just hovering, waiting. "They're back," Carlyle continued. "They've been there for 3 days, not approaching, not communicating, just present, and we believe they're waiting for you." "For us to do what?" someone asked. "We think they want contact, official, open. They want you to act as intermediaries, bridges between their consciousness and ours." "Why us?" Grant asked. "Because you're compatible." The marking process selected individuals with specific neural patterns, capacity for adaptation, willingness to accept change. You're the ones who can handle what comes next. "And if we refuse?" Carlyle's expression hardened. "Then they'll wait, or they'll mark more people. This process has been going on for years, decades maybe. They're patient. They'll keep selecting, keep building the network, until humanity has enough bridges to make contact inevitable." Grant felt the network pulse. Everyone thinking the same question. What do they want from us? And in that moment of shared focus, Grant felt something respond. Not from the other marked individuals. From outside. From the lights in the desert. You will understand soon. The transformation is nearly complete. Everyone in the room gasped. They'd all heard it. Felt it. The first direct communication from whatever created the network. "Did you?" Brett started. "Yeah," Grant said. "We all did." Carlyle looked shaken. "What was that?" "Them. They're in the network now. They can communicate through it. We have always been here, waiting, watching, preparing you." The voice wasn't one voice. It was many, thousands, maybe millions, all speaking as one through the neural connections. Your species stands at a threshold. Evolution requires guides. You have been chosen to guide. "Guide us where?" Grant asked aloud. "Beyond limitation, beyond flesh, beyond individual consciousness. Humanity can join the greater network, become part of something infinite. What if we don't want that? Then you remain as you are, limited, isolated, dying separately instead of living together." The communication faded. Left behind was silence and 45 people trying to process what they'd just experienced. Grant looked around the room, saw fear in some faces, wonder in others, confusion in most. "What do we do?" someone asked. "We decide," Carlyle said. "Together, because whatever choice you make, it affects all of humanity." The meeting broke up. People wandered off in small groups, talking quietly, processing. Grant found himself outside, staring at the desert. The lights were visible even in daylight now, faint but present, waiting. Brett joined him. "You think they're lying about what they're offering?" "I don't know, but I know what we're feeling is real. This connection, this expansion of consciousness. It's not an illusion. But is it worth losing our individuality, our humanity? Are we losing it, or are we gaining something more?" Brett didn't answer. Just stood there staring at the lights. That night, Grant dreamed, but it wasn't his dream. It was shared across the network. All 45 people experiencing the same vision. They stood on a vast plain under an alien sky, and around them billions of lights, each one a consciousness. Each one connected. Not human, not alien, just aware, thinking, existing together. "This is what we offer," the voice said. "Not conquest, not submission. Partnership, evolution. A place in something greater than any individual species." Grant saw Earth from space, saw the lights descending, not invading, integrating. And wherever they touched, people changed. Evolved, joined the network, not losing themselves, becoming more than themselves. 6 months, the voice said. Then we arrive. Then humanity chooses. Join us, or remain alone. Grant woke up gasping. His watch showed 3:47 a.m. Of course it did. He checked his phone. Messages from other marked individuals, all awake, all shaken, all processing the same vision. Brett's message stood out. "I don't think we have a choice anymore. I think we already chose when we accepted the marks." Grant typed back, "Maybe. Or maybe the marks just let us see the choice clearly." He went to the window, looked out at the facility, at the desert, at the sky where the lights waited. In 6 months everything would change. Humanity would learn they weren't alone, that evolution was possible, that consciousness could expand beyond individual minds, and 45 people would stand at the center of it. Bridges, guides, the first to cross over. Grant touched the mark on his shoulder. It pulsed with light, with connection, with possibility. He was scared. He was curious. He was ready. Whatever came next, he'd face it. They all would. Together. Connected. Transformed. The lights pulsed in the distance, acknowledging, accepting. 6 months. Then the sky would split again. And this time it wouldn't be 3 lights. It would be billions.